Defining Duke is brought to you by Raycon. With things slowly approaching normalcy, I found myself reconnecting with music through a lot of my hobbies, such as the gym. Going to the gym, I have a playlist on Spotify called Lift Like a Gamer, featuring tracks from Neo, The World Ends With You, and Metal Gear Rising. Yeah, imagine me bench pressing to JRPGs, because that's exactly what's happening. And it's through Raycon that I'm able to do all of this, which have 32 battery life, so you can listen to what you want, when you want, for a very long time. So create your own soundtrack with Raycon. Right now, Defining Duke listeners can get 15% off their Raycon order at buyraycon.com/Duke. That's buyraycon.com/Duke to save 15% on Raycons. buyraycon.com/Duke. Defining Duke is brought to you by MeUndies. I've been talking a lot about the gym as of lately, and the clothes you wear there matter a lot. The material of said clothes can limit your flexibility when hitting various weights and machines. One of the most under-discussed parts of it is the choice of underwear that you bring to the gym and how having something soft, breathable, and adjustable like MeUndies can let you get your best workouts in. Never leave your couch again with a MeUndies membership, a monthly membership that sends new pairs right to your door. Each month you'll choose new undies, socks, or a bralette and pick the style and color or print that feels the most you. Fun, right? Plus enjoy discounted pricing, free shipping, and exclusive early access to new launches. Love your butt and get the membership. To get 15% off your first order and free shipping, go to MeUndies.com/Duke. That's MeUndies.com/Duke. Defining Duke is brought to you by Chime. Chime is an award-winning app and debit card that believes your online checking account shouldn't cost you money. As someone who was the victim of a stolen debit card that then had their money spent on League of Legends skins, hearing that Chime has no overdraft fees, foreign transaction fees, monthly service fees, or transfer fees is a relief to someone such as myself. It's time to say goodbye to hidden fees. Join the millions of Americans already loving Chime. Sign up takes only 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started today at chime.com/Duke. That's chime.com/Duke. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees apply except at MoneyPass ATM in a 7-Eleven location and at any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Other fees, such as third-party and cash deposit fees, may apply. Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and welcome to episode 39 of Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast. As always, I am joined by the elusive man, Lord Cognito.
Someone watched the event over. What's going on, sir? How you doing, Matty? What's going on? We got
doing well.
Some specialty, people in the building, and it's just feeling good today, man.
The Grubhub has been welcomed to Defining Duke. Yeah, Jeff, welcome.
Thank you for having me, guys. This is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I listen to the show whenever I get a chance. You guys do put on a good entertaining podcast.
Thank you.
Brother,
An
thank
honor.
you so much. It really means a lot coming from you, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love all your guys' stuff, honestly. That's why I was happy to come on.
Yeah, and thank you for all the Mass Effect content you provide me with, by the way. Your articles have been very good in lifting my channel up in 2020, so I appreciate you, Jeff.
No. Honestly, that came back around because I started watching your stuff. I'm like, he knows what he's talking about.
All right, here we go.
Make sure you check in with his stuff before I say anything too stupid about it.
No doubt.
Anyway, we appreciate you joining us, Jeff. We got a fun week ahead of us. For those who are new here, we have early access for this show every Thursday on patreon.com/laststandmedia. We hit free feeds like Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, all that stuff on Sunday, so you can listen there, plus the video version on the Last Stand Media YouTube channel. We have Defining Duke Ultimate, which just went live this week, episode 35. We had a perfectly dark dispute, if you will. And we'll be diving into that a little bit more in this episode. But if you want almost an hour episode just talking about Crystal Dynamics and the initiative and what's going on there, go ahead, give that a look. But before we do begin, just a couple of things. Number one, if you are a patron, An Evening with Last Stand Media is available right now. That's the event that we went to Butler, Pennsylvania for. You can check that out now. You can watch me preach the good word of Toy Story 3. You can watch Cog pimp out Mass Effect 2.
Yes, sir. PowerPoint presentations were strong, you know.
Yeah, man. I love the way Lockmore edited. He really
Yes.
did a bunch of jump cuts. He showed the presentations up close and personal. It was much more involved than I expected. So he did a phenomenal job. One of the most memorable things I've been a part of. So please do check it out. It was a really good time. And honestly, now looking back on it, I thought I like rushed through my presentation. No. I thought I was pretty calm and collected up there. You know, you couldn't tell. I was shitting myself. That's all.
No, bro, you were good. Because I'll be honest, like it's always like if you're doing anything public, the being the first person called on stage in front of people is like you don't want to be the first. So you broke the tension. I was like, oh, it's okay, it's Matty. I just sit back, but you were just so in your bag. You had the energy, you had the jokes, and it set the tone. And you actually eased me. I was like, okay. We gonna have some fun with this.
I think what's as intimidating as going first is going last because you know everyone's kind of ahead of you. It's like I got to follow that up. I got to follow that up. I thought you did excellent.
Ray Gun and Colin, and then I'm just like, Dagan was in his bag, man. Dagan, you know, what I'm saying we gonna spoil too much. We want people to watch it, but you know, it was really good. Everybody made excellent points. The competition was fierce. I've never done anything like that before. First time. People like, oh, your PowerPoint skills. I'm like, bro, if it wasn't for Ben telling me about Prezi, I wouldn't have known what the hell I was doing.
Oh yeah, Prezi.
Shout out to Prezi though. Prezi,
for real.
I literally bought a subscription. I was like, oh, this is the greatest. This is like PowerPoint for dummies. I was like, I
think
love
I did a job resume in Prezi before, and they were like, yeah, that's pretty good. We're not going to hire you, but that's pretty interesting. So yeah, shout out to Prezi.
Shout out to Prezi. I had to give him a plug.
One more before we begin, and then we'll do some more questions. I launched Retro Rebound just this past week. It's my retro gaming channel. Normally, we don't like self-promo here that much. We just try to get into the show and what you're asking us in the news as soon as possible. But it's at 5K subs. It's doing really well for my personal standards. We're growing it. And I just love if you have an opportunity, check it out. I'm pretty proud of the work there. Lockmore's doing the editing. So if you're familiar with his work here on LSM, you'll like what we're doing there. And we have a lot of videos stacked up. Videos go live every Monday and Thursday. And again, Retro Rebound, if you want to check it out, I would really appreciate it. It's pinned on my Twitter. It's over on my YouTube channel, listed as the only featured channel there, selfishly. So with that, let's get into some warm-up questions. All right, let's go.
I'm subscribing right now. All right,
there we go. There we go. Growth, slow but steady. That's how it happens.
Let's hit the analytics.
All right. Number one comes from Zach Yearwood. Hey, Matty and Cog. And of course, Jeff. It's the most wonderful time of the year for weebs such as yourself, Matty. It's TGS season. We all know that we shouldn't expect news from Xbox's event stream for TGS. However, there are still possibilities for some third-party announcements that may occur during other streams. Do we finally get Persona 5 announced for Xbox or Sega's new JRPG to come to Xbox as well? Your thoughts? Have a weeb-tacular day, guys. So this is like 3 weeks in a row. We've been hitting Japan and Xbox. But now we got a fresh idea here with Jeff. I want to pass it to you right away. What are you feeling about Xbox, Japan, JRPGs, and where they're trending?
It's such they run so hot and cold, right? Where it seems like Square Enix likes Game Pass. It seems like they're into the idea. But when Square Enix announces a bunch of new games, a lot of times Xbox still gets left out, right? So it's weird where they're still in that weird in between space. The Xbox doing good historically in Japan. Like when you look at historic trajectories for these consoles, did very poorly with the previous two consoles. Now it seems like this one is going to outsell the Xbox One in its first year or something in Japan. So there's an audience there. A lot of that has to do with the pandemic. Japanese gamers are playing a lot more games, and so they're like looking for anything, and the Xbox is there, so they're going for it. But in terms of then that translating into support from developers and publishers for content, that I think that's mostly going to have to come down to Microsoft making those deals, getting those things on Game Pass to the point where that's like, okay, that is what's actually going to make it move. I do think Microsoft is still interested in doing a lot of that. That adds a lot of variety and flavor to Game Pass, and we've already seen that be pretty successful with stuff like Dragon Quest and a few others that have really stuck out. And I think you can expect to see more of that. Whether or not that turns into Persona 5 getting announced for console and coming to Game Pass right away at Tokyo Game Show, I don't know. I'm hopeful, but I think that there's a good chance you might have to still wait a little bit longer for that. And also that relies on Sega and Atlas kind of getting their act together, and I'm not too confident about that either. So.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Cog, what about you, man?
Yeah, man. I mean, we talked about this prior. My whole thing is obviously they're making strides in the region, but I do want to keep my expectations in check here, as far as my, grandiose, oh, they're going to buy Sega or something like, no, I don't necessarily see anything big. But for me, what would be nice, like I say, like Jeff eloquently said, if there was any way, Sega Atlas and can get this Persona thing going, because I think it would be a huge boon. We know they're trying with Game Pass very hard. I still champion the fact that they have Yakuza Like a Dragon initially as an exclusive kind of launch window title, well, timed exclusive. And then, eventually that came into the service as well as the entire line. So they're making strides, to really encourage that audience to partake in Game Pass with those styles of games and the JRPGs. But that's what I'm hoping for. What about you, Matty? What are you seeing? What you think?
It's funny. Atlas is one of the weirdest companies to study because I know a lot of fans feel this way about pretty much any company under the sun, where if they were ran the way fans wanted them to be ran, they would be very happy, although it's not realistic. But Atlas does things like, for example, there were a lot of people very upset about how they celebrated their 25th anniversary and they started it off. They confirmed they're going to be doing like 7 different announcements related to Persona, and they started off with like wallpapers on their website. And people were just sitting there going,
oh my God.
And people were just like, okay, maybe we didn't want Persona 3 remake or something, but wallpapers? Really? So I'm not expecting much at TGS when it comes to Sega or Atlas. The reason for that too is because I feel like just last year, Atlas and Sega collectively realized, hey, if we re-release these old Persona games, people will buy them.
Yes.
We just saw this year that Persona 4 Golden passed 1 million sales on Steam alone. Right. So it's like now they're going, oh, we could probably port other things now, which Sega then eventually said they're going to. We don't know what those games will be. It's only a matter of time. But I do feel like you'll eventually see Persona go to PlayStation first, and Xbox is probably punted further down the road if history continues to repeat itself. And as Jeff said, Xbox kind of keeps getting left out, but eventually getting roped in.
Yeah. I think there's a chance that Persona 4 Golden is the thing that maybe happens sooner rather than later. I feel like that is going to come to consoles after hitting Steam and doing very well. There's still a lot of other options there, Xbox being one of them, but Switch also being very obvious as a home for that game.
Yes.
Just port that same game over, call it a day, call that one of the big announcements for this Persona event that's going to happen over the next 18 months or whatever they said it was going to be, and then wait a little bit longer before you move Persona 5 somewhere else. I could see them doing that.
I agree, especially Persona 5 on Switch, way before even Xbox fans started demanding it. That was the place that everyone wanted it.
Yeah,
and then they did Royal, and like Royal never came to Switch. So Strikers eventually did. They said it was something with the engine. I don't know. It's a really strange situation there, but we'll see as time goes on. We'll cover whatever breaks from TGS in the coming month, and I'm sure we'll get some news. Xbox will be there, although they're not doing big announcements. I'm sure we'll see some exciting games there. Nonetheless, let's get into Nick Brandow as our second question. Hey, gents, as someone who often went back to older titles when hearing they got FPS boost or an Xbox One X update, I've been a bit bummed, but the lack of updates and additions to backwards compatibility and backward-looking features. Any chance Microsoft reinvents those efforts to improve the experience of games from the ever-growing back catalog? So yeah, we saw a lot of FPS boost games, for example, and they just sort of slowed down after the, I want to say 90 or so with EA and Bethesda. And so here we are now. Jeff, I'll pass it to you again. What do you think's going on right now with FPS boost?
I think it's something where they are still pretty heavily investing in that technology. I think that we should see it in more and more games. I think a big part of it is, that's a relatively small team. They're well funded, and they know that this is their bread and butter. But they also, I think, they work on a lot of different stuff. So a lot of it is like, okay, hurry up and wait. Where all right, we're going to get this technology done. We're going to work on it, and then what do we do next? Well, now we have to wait for the other teams to go out and like confirm with all these other developers and publishers that we can actually implement this technology into their game. And so we got to wait around for that to happen, and then we can keep going. And that causes a lot of bottlenecks. And I think when that happens, these teams start working on other projects, working on other things that they can be spending their time on. I think that they are also very interested in looking back at ways to bring Xbox and more Xbox and Xbox 360 games to Xbox Series X and have them get similar sort of boosts and maybe different kinds of boost. I know they've done the FPS boost. I think they're really looking at ways to do resolution boosting with a similar sort of AI in machine learning technology. But that, like, once they start doing that, they're going to really invest in that fully. But they're also not sure if that's going to be worth the, is that juice worth the squeeze there, where the real reason we're doing this is to get more stuff on Game Pass. And when you do that with stuff, when you're bringing stuff from the Xbox One forward, that makes some sense. There's a lot of games there that while they are, going on 10 years old, they don't feel that old. And then you have stuff on Xbox 360. Okay, that's starting to feel a little bit older. And people might be saying that, okay, that's interesting, I will try it, but it's not why I'm going to get Game Pass. And the same thing with Xbox. So there's a lot of things that they're considering there. I still think they are overall pretty interested in keeping this program going, though.
All right.
Yeah,
what about you, Cock?
Yeah, man. I mean, Jeff just on fire with that. I agree. I think it's obviously a priority as far as resources with that specific team. What I see when my interactions with the team and stuff like that, it's also priority as far as sometimes there's technical challenges, that are presented, because I believe initially when I think Fallout 4, a couple of games that were announced with FPS boost, sometimes we had Jason Ronald on ILB and we were speaking to him, and there was sometimes it's not just about, okay, hey, why isn't this getting prioritized and stuff like that. You have to see every aspect of the game and to make sure there's compatibility and technical challenges that don't cause any type of game breaking bugs that will affect it. So that also comes down to also then working with the developer and stuff like that. I think they will come to, to his question. I think that it's more of a situation of, like you said, prioritization. And then the other thing too is, I also think there's, like Jeff said, there's other techniques and things with machine learning that they're also working on. So they're just trying to split up resources, what's going on. But the thing I definitely want to get across, which I will continue to get across, is we need to see the greatest 900p game ever. We need to see that rise to the Rome, and I'm going to beat that drum, and I'm never going to stop. I need that. Because look, man,
greatest 900p game of all time.
Of all time, brother. Like, I still like that game. I thought it's one of those good launch games. Yep. You get a new console, it shows off the power, and you get mesmerized. Yeah, there was a lot of Q2Es in the same image.
Yeah, there were.
The potential was there. The potential. You know what I'm saying? So that's the one I'm champion for.
Yeah, I mean, look, that is probably, if they do what Jeff said with the resolution boost, that's probably one of the first games they should go to, right? It already looked amazing in 900p. Imagine you bump that up to 4K if they could find a way. That would be incredible looking.
60, bro.
Oh. Yeah, that would be a great showcase of it. I think it's interesting how they've been handling it, because we heard them announce like a huge batch with 90 plus games, and they did like a one-off with Dark Souls 3, because that was one of the most requested games. And it's just really interesting because there isn't a pattern to it. It's just like when they got something to announce or they got something that they think is big, they'll show it off. I think now we're getting close to the anniversary where you have to wonder at times if they could synchronize something there, or I don't know, man, because like otherwise you've got Halo that month, or I'm sorry, in that coming month in December. And I feel like things are going to get busy for them as the year goes deeper. So it's like, do you do the FPS boost stuff earlier in that, like October? That's what I've always been trying to figure out with Xbox, is their timing of stuff. Like, I didn't expect, we'll talk about it later in the news, but this week there's like, oh, Avengers is coming, by the way. And it's just like a random Tuesday announcement. Like the most consistent day for them I've noticed is Wednesdays, but beyond that, they just kind of speak when something's ready. So to answer Nick's question in full, I just think there isn't a pattern at all across the board. They just announce stuff when it's ready.
Yeah, you can't rely on patterns. They're human beings. They're messy. They're going to get stuff done when it's done. That's real.
Yeah. That's
absolutely. All right, third question goes to beloved Emperor, Dear Dukes, and maybe Special Nick's other half, Jeff Grubb. I need some backstory on that.
Just backstory on that.
He says that I think he calls me his boyfriend, is what it is.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I was on Xbox era with Nick, and I've heard the connotation.
The connotation. Wow. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you saying those sweet things about me and my boy.
Listen, man, it's all love, man. Love is love, of course, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful.
No doubt.
Longtime listener, first time conveyor of questions, welcome. Should Xbox be looking into the creation of a new studio / the building of another team for an existing studio like Playground or Insomniac with the express purpose of building a family-friendly mascot platformer? Should Xbox try to poach talent from Toys for Bob, given the news from earlier this year that the studio is now on Warzone support duty? Just imagining that some developers at that studio might still want to make mascot platformers after Crash 4, not skins for Warzone. Thanks for all the content you guys provide. P.S. Matty, I hope you have a rainy on the Autobahn in Forza kind of day. Cog, may you and the other Iron Lords continue to grow fat from strength and opulence as Lord Callus wishes. Congrats on reaching 10K subs on YouTube.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Much appreciated. And I love the Callus Destiny reference. That's actually a favorite reference of mine.
Bro, I was telling you on Twitter, I don't know anything about Destiny, so it's just another language like that. I was like, I literally thought that was someone from like BC days when I read that. I'm not even kidding.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny watching you, Matty, like analyze my Destiny tweets because I can tell like you don't know what the hell is I'm talking about. So
just start like responding.
What is this man saying?
Yeah, I'm just gonna start responding to them and just be like, "Looks cool, man!" Like just like really hyping you up, like being that supportive mom. Like, yeah, go son.
No, keep being you, bro. I actually love it. I love it because it makes me look at myself like, yeah, I can see how someone doesn't know what this is or what's going on. But yeah, salute the beloved Emperor. I'll jump in real quick.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, salute the beloved Emperor again to 10K. Much love. Again, I want to thank you, both of you gentlemen. You've both been in the realm, yourselves. And I really appreciate it because I definitely like the fact that we can bring different people together and, they feel comfortable and safe in the platform. But to the question, as far as the whole family friendly thing, yeah, I agree. I've been on this thing where the Xbox community is a little mad with me, where I say,
too.
Yeah, I know. Right? Isn't it interesting when everyone's mad at you? So it's like, for me, I always say, how I'm on my hashtag just one, right? Which is that third person, narrative driven, over the shoulder, new IP, right? And then I look at the Xbox catalog and they're doing great. This is not knocking. They have probably one of the most diverse catalogs in the way they have their software lineup coming out. But I do feel there are some deficiencies. And one of them is family friendly games, fighting games, that kind of thing. And to me, it always helps to improve. It's just funny when I hear the pushback, I don't want you copying this and Sony and to me, it's a deficiency. You want all different genres so you get more people in the ecosystem. But to the question, yeah, I like whatever, methods they go about trying to get either family friendly or mascot platform, basically the Nintendo bag, getting something with kids, you want them in this ecosystem, big time. Another thing we talked about, Matty, is obviously, if there was any potential with WB, and I believe it's, what is it, Traveler's Tale?
Yes.
Or
like Lego games.
That's why I was all about if the hypothetical WB acquisition, because that under that umbrella would also serve a need along with NetherRealm with fighting, and that's why I picked that. But I'm curious what Jeff and you have to say in reference to the whole family friendly kind of things for the Xbox.
It's making a new studio to make family friendly games. I make sense on paper. I think we're seeing with the initiative, start a new studio is a lot of work and you might need help there anyhow. So, if you're willing to immediately bring in support studios to help you out with that stuff, that's possible. I think what might make more sense is to really just kind of mutate the question into say, okay, instead of starting a brand new studio, let's have Double Fine or let's have Rare start a new studio and have it be under their wing. So, you have your headquarters right now. Let's start a second office in another city that is talent rich, whether it's Montreal or Austin or something like that, wherever. But you start a second studio, it's going to be under your banner. We'll likely use some of the IPs that you're familiar with, but maybe something else. Maybe this is how we get Banjo-Kazooie back or something like that. I think that makes some more sense where you can take some of the existing talent from these studios, have them work on multiple projects at a time. Because there's a lot of jobs at studios where, you're sitting around for years waiting for something to do because the person that comes up with the art hasn't done anything yet. So let's start staggering these people to work back and forth instead of just having them kind of, okay, maybe you're on Sea of Thieves for a while. Now you're kind of waiting for the next thing to come along while we figure out what Everwild is. I think that's not a great use of their time. So I think, have Rare start a second an office, to work on family friendly games specifically, and then build it up from there. I think that would make more sense.
100% took the words out of my mouth. Rare was the immediate pick in my head because the thing is I was, I think, underestimating Banjo's staying power a little bit. I know how popular and meaningful it was many years back, but when it got announced again for Switch Online, the N64 version there, I think that was probably the most significant one that people were talking about. They were so shocked that of course that Rare, and I'm sure Xbox had some type of involvement there, getting that game over onto Switch, even though it was available on Rare Replay, I thought was incredible to see, and people were very excited about it. And I was thinking to myself, I think Xbox is sitting on something here. I think if this was one of the games that they remade, people would be 100% for it. I mean, there's a lot of games that they cover from that entire history, but I feel like Banjo is the most obvious one for a remake of some kind. And yeah, if you could, of course, in a perfect world, poach talent from a company that did a great job with a famous IP like Crash Bandicoot, of course that'd be great. But if you've got Double Fine, who did a phenomenal 3D platformer this year, and you've got Rare, who's kind of holding the IP, I could totally see a co-development effort there that would work wonderfully. And it would be with an IP that makes a lot of sense. So I think everyone's in agreement across the community that they need something family friendly. It's really a matter of time because they need to address it. But it's like, do they address it quickly with the purchase? Like Cog mentioned, we talked about Warner Bros. With Traveler's Tales and getting some Lego games in there. Or do you do something a little bit more, I'd say, sincere, a little bit more long-term, and start building Banjo for a new audience many years later?
Fair enough.
We'll see. Defining Duke is brought to you by MeUndies. I've been talking a lot about the gym as of lately, and the clothes you wear there matter a lot. The material of said clothes can limit your flexibility when hitting various weights and machines. One of the most under-discussed parts of it is the choice of underwear that you bring to the gym, and how having something soft, breathable, and adjustable like MeUndies can let you get your best workouts in. Plus, you get locker room bragging rights for anyone who's changing in there with you. And MeUndies offers classic colors to ridiculous prints, so it's all about expressing yourself in your own unique way. They also have Match Me, which allows you to match your bottom half with your other half by hopping in on an underwear-based membership in case spicing things up is ever required. Never leave your couch again with a MeUndies membership, a monthly membership that sends new pairs right to your door. Each month, you'll choose new undies, socks, or a bralette and pick the style and color or print that feels the most you. Fun, right? Plus, enjoy discounted pricing, free shipping, and exclusive early access to new launches. Love your butt and get the membership. To get 15% off your first order and free shipping, go to MeUndies.com/Duke. That's MeUndies.com/Duke. Fourth question goes to Nandin Patil. Hello, Matty, Cog, and Jeff. What is the process behind getting those insider scoops and stories? Are you the ones who make first contact with your sources, or do they get in touch with you? Do you have random and unknown sources each time, or are they people that you've been in contact with for a long time? How do you go about validating this info? And how do you decide if something is newsworthy, whether it's just deciding whether it's relevant enough, or deciding whether you want to leak this particular piece of information? Thanks, and have a great day. Now, Jeff, of course, this question's mostly for you. I've had some information, but you answer it to your comfort level. But I'm very curious as to your process, because there were I think something like Dead Space where I'm like, wow, he kind of just broke that. Like, we now know about that game. Yeah. A little bit.
I didn't even mean to. Yeah.
I just want to know, how do you make that decision? And of course, the process behind it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's different every time. It's different with every game. And that means, honestly, sometimes it goes with my mood. I don't do I like with Dead Space specifically. I think is a good example. I'm like, man, that's their one last thing. Like, we knew it was their one last thing, and we're sitting on it. And I'm talking with Mike, and we're talking on the podcast, and we don't have the hundreds of thousands of listeners. We got like I think we get 2,000, 3,000 listens a week or something. We're not a huge podcast. So I'm sitting there just having a conversation with Mike. We're not saying the name. He does say the word dead. So that definitely gave it away. But people just took it and they're like, this is Dead Space. It's 100% that. And then a bunch of people wrote the story. And I was like, dang, I wish I kind of would have just sat on that one and hopefully let them get to the point where they could announce this their one last thing. I would have preferred that. In that case, it's like, what it is a lot of times is I want to be using this news as an opportunity to explain things to the audience. In that case, it's like, yeah, I could do that, but I'll be able to do that after Dead Space gets announced. We could talk about why they're doing it. All that still be fine. That's what I did. I ended up writing a story after that kind of explained how the game got greenlit, why EA was feeling comfortable about it. And that story did really well. People want to know that stuff. And that's where I want to be, because that's where I feel the most comfortable. Right. But there's definitely situations where it's like, okay, this is a big news story. It's valuable. I know other people know it. So, if I can get the confirmation before anyone else, I think I probably will go with it. And I don't ever really feel great about undercutting someone's work who's working at a place, then they're going to have a big announcement. I never feel good about this, but I don't write for them. I don't write for them. That is not my job. My job is to write for the readers, and that has to be my first concern. And if it does undercut somebody's job, I feel bad, but it's not. That's part of the job too, is feeling bad. And then As for how to get the information in the first place, it's messy. It's not. There's no one way to do it.
Games mess.
Yes, it's games mess, exactly. There's a lot of people who, like, once you get a few stories under your belt, they'll reach out to you, and you can't confirm any of it. And sometimes it's right. A lot of times it's wrong though, and a lot of the times that stuff is bouncing around what is basically like just a ring of people who are considered insiders, and they're just bouncing the same story back and forth, and you don't know how many like games of telephone it's been through. You just cannot rely on that stuff at all, and so it's really hard to take that as like, you know, something you could print or even say on a podcast. And I don't. So what I do is, if I hear something, I have a set of sources that I can go to and say, hey, what have you heard about this? And if they know, I am pretty certain that there's something there, and then I can follow up on it. Check in with another source and say, hey, okay, I'm hearing from this and this and this. And, you know, never saying I'm hearing from this person. I'm saying I'm hearing from this direction that this thing is happening. I'm able to sort of confirm and double confirm and stuff like that. But in the end, it's usually almost always about like, okay, can I use this information to explain something about games to people? And a lot of times that stuff gets left out of the headlines and left out of like what happens on Twitter, because Twitter takes those headlines from other sources and stuff like that. But if you come to the source in the conversation that we're having, it's almost always like, here's why this is happening. Here's why these decisions are being made. And that's the stuff I actually find the most fascinating. That's what I do in Grub
I saw you
now.
did that with the initiative and Crystal Dynamics.
Yes.
You recently just published an article about that, just saying like, yeah, it's just as simple and boring as I think people are saying.
Yep. You know, and I went and I just did some little bit of reporting there, just double checking. And even the people I was checking with, they're like, yeah, that does seem weird. Oh, you know, we'll see what's happening. And they come back like, oh, there's not really much there. It's like exactly what it looks like if you were to sort of say, hey, Occam's Razor, what's happening here? Oh, okay, this company just was about to ramp up. It's hard to hire people right now. So instead, they're just going to bring in Crystal Dynamics, who wasn't doing anything weirdly. And that's the side of the story that I wish I could get more info on, but I'm working on that. But that's tough. It's a little bit more difficult for me.
Salute to you, Jeff, on that. Again, you know, I've followed you for a while, and you know, a lot of it's funny. It's funny when the fanboys get mad because I'm like, what you gonna do? And then what happens is I see the cycle, then they lash, oh, it's no way, and and then it actually happens, and it ends up being verified and true. And then I'm just like, oh, I hope the energy is going to be the same.
Oh, it never will be.
On the Twitter timeline.
No, it never will be. It's like that. They always go back to Xbox Live Gold going free, which is still absolutely 100% still on the timeline. They are going to do that one day. But you know, I didn't give a good time frame for that, so I get it. And then right now the Kojima thing, I'm waiting for. Okay, I've only ever said that Kojima and Microsoft were discussing things. I never said that the deal was fully closed, but they did come to an agreement. And I'm like, okay, I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop on that one, because I think that'll be a pretty big deal once that actually does happen.
Oh,
so,
absolutely. Yeah. Listen, man, that's the big one for me. That's the one that I got visualized in my head. I got
who knows what it'll be, but
bro, I already visualized. I'm running with your stuff.
That's what happens. I got Phil on stage. Imagination. Yeah.
Jeff Grubb told me.
Right. Like, I didn't say shit. What are you talking about? I didn't do shit.
Confirmed. No doubt. Good question. Man.
Yeah. On my end, it's a pretty similar thing. I obviously would get less emails and stuff, but it typically is like you can smell the bullshit from a mile away. And because I'm not like a known reporter, and I do have a limited portfolio, if you will, of credible leaks, most of them revolving around KOTOR. It's one of those situations where it always begins with like someone will give you data. You'll be like, I'm going to sit on this. You'll see it get announced, or it will be real. And then you go back to them later and you're like, okay, so what else can you tell me? And that's typically what happened with me with KOTOR and Xbox to a smaller extent. But, beyond that, like I remember one time I'd shared in an earlier episode of Define Duke, like, Xbox was going to kind of lean more in the Lucasfilm direction. And I had shared what I had heard because it seemed like that person had been accurate multiple times in the past. And then you see like, well, KOTOR's now with PlayStation, and that was a deal that I was told like, Xbox was in on that, but they sort of just like backed out effectively to some extent. And so it was one of those things where it's like, well, I guess that was not inaccurate, but now like, are they in on something else? And those are the questions that you just sort of have to leave up in the air. And it's what happens when you actually report a little bit too soon. Yes,
definitely happened. That has happened to me a bunch of times. I think that happened to me with Mass Effect, right? With Mass Effect was going to get announced in October, and it got delayed. And I'm like, guys, it did get delayed. I'm not like trying to jerk you around here, but everyone's like, oh, that was just wrong. I'm like, well, it was right until it wasn't. Like that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, thank you for sharing some of that. I'm sure a lot of people were very curious about your process.
Yeah, no, I appreciate people asking. It's something like I don't get to talk about all that much. I kind of just do the process, and people like they gather what they see when I'm actually doing it, like on Grub Snacks or something. But then when people actually ask about it, I think they're like, okay, that makes some sort of sense, and I get it. Like I said, it's messy. You figure out each time anew.
I actually got one last question before we move on.
Please.
Like, Jeff, have you ever had a situation like internally where it's like either the team or the game or something that's been revealed, or like it's like really angry, and you get like that nasty mail? How dare you spoil album? How dare you, Jeff Grubb?
Yeah, it's always framed as you're putting a lot of pressure on the team, and I'm like, damn, I didn't mean it. Like, it's not what I'm trying to do here. Like, that is not my intent. I get it. It's an unintended consequence. I take responsibility for it. Absolutely. But at the same time, I just explained to them what I explained the first thing I said. I write for the readers, and they want to know this stuff. And I tried to find the right justifications. I know at a certain point, it's my own morality, and that's what it is. But I'm like, if I can use this as a teaching opportunity for my audience, I will do it. Now, Dead Space, that one wasn't great. They weren't too happy about that. And I'm like, I get it. And I didn't even mean to. It just happened. Like, it was on the podcast. It just happened. And I'm like, shit. So, but yeah, they were pretty upset about that. But I don't blame them. Yeah.
A little bit. EA probably in general is just a little like, with Dragon Age, Mass Effect.
Yeah. And it's like, I've definitely like tried to like scale it back too with EA. I'm like doing less, and so when that's what I was thinking. Like when the Dead Space thing was happening, it's like, all right, definitely got him with all that other stuff. I'll just let him have this announcement. I don't have that. It was like, I'm a bad person. That's what I am.
Let him live, Jeff.
I know. I'm like, that's what the conversation was that actually leaked it. I'm like, Mike was like, hey, can we say this? And I'm like, no, we're gonna save that one. And he's like, yeah, and then he made some joke about, oh, well, I guess we'll be dead first or something like that. I'm like, oh my god, Mike, no. But whatever, whatever. It's my
message was on fire, bro. It's funny.
Yeah, man. Number 5, we'll get into the news afterwards. Matt Sloan writes in, hey, Dukes, hope you're having a terrible day. I'd love to know your impressions on Halo multiplayer. From what I've seen of it, looked like a COD-like game with the gunplay, or has it just been modernized? Keep up the good work, guys, and keep fucking that chicken. Thanks. Thank you, Matt. All right, so, we just had another flight test this past weekend with Halo Infinite. Of course, after Big Team Battle, myself, Cog, and we'll ask Chris to unite once again for another Halo Infinite talk, but did either of you get a chance to play this past weekend on the newest PvP flight?
I did not. I was too busy this past weekend to actually get a chance to play it. So I was like, what it was, I got like the fainted, or feel like I was about to start playing it, and everyone's like, oh, they shut it off. And I'm like, it's Saturday night. It's not going to go on Sunday. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll make plans for Sunday and do other stuff. And then I'm like, oh, wait, it's still going today. And by the time I realized it was too late for me to like go download it and everything. So yeah, I didn't get a chance.
Yeah, for me, just a couple of matches. Yeah, I purposely ration myself. That is an addiction. I love the gameplay, the grappling hook, bro. It's bad. I know when I love something, and I'm just like, I gotta stop because this is not the full retail thing. And then the other reason why I stopped myself early is Big Team Battle this week, and that's the one I really want.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of fun. I'm definitely gonna be there for that.
Yeah, I want to sink my hooks into it, man. But, man, I saw some clips there, man. You out here shooting things and looking at details, and the fanboys all mad at you and comparing details.
Wait,
to other
details. Is the fruit animated? Did they animate?
Fruit's back. Fruitgate's over. I think. Yeah, Fruit's back. We got
that's Vehicle Gate, man.
Vehicle Gate, boy.
All I did was passive video. YouTube has this weird thing now where I'll go into my my home menu, and it's now just recommending these like 11-second clips of random things from whether it be 8 months ago or like recently. And so one was called Halo Infinite's vehicle damage details. Really cool. I'm like, oh, what is this? It's 11 seconds long. And I think that's the idea, is they get you to click on it because it's like, oh, whatever. What is this? Keeps you on the platform. And so I look, and it's just this guy standing there with a pistol, and he's just shooting the ghost. And you're seeing like over time, the detail of the paint on the ghost is fading away. And underneath it is like this whole other texture. And it's just happening like as you fire away on it. And I was looking at it going like, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. So I just grabbed the clip. I downloaded it. I credited this guy with his link. I uploaded on my Twitter. I'm like, hey, is this some really cool level of detail that is in Halo Infinite? Because I think, honestly, at the end of the day, like, there is levels of destruction that should be there. But like, I think like per pistol shot doesn't really matter. So I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I'll just share this. I'm sure some people will find it cool. It ends up blowing up. Right. And then I don't know who quote tweets it or retweets it. I don't even bother digging. But like, oh my God, man, it's been brutal in my mentions. Like, just like UX bots are happy with anything. It
Oh
looks
my
like
God.
sandpaper. I'm just sharing a fucking clip, man.
Chill out.
Fucking clip.
Don't play a game or touch some grass. Jesus.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Like,
I wasn't
why
even
does-
upset.
it-
I
it just-
told him last week, Cog. I told him last week. I said, bring it on. They brought it.
Oh yeah, you was about to smoke. I saw you. You was about to smoke. Salute to you. It's just funny because it's like I just miss the days where you just put a clip up and you're just celebrating because you're happy, right?
I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, it's you can't do. Nah, bro, that sucks. The reason because it doesn't compare to last. And I'm like, what are we doing?
But it's like this was. I did not intend to have this conversation with you at all. I was like, just like, I like this thing, and you're like, this says bad things about you as a person. Like, okay. There's an option now to switch the tweet replies from anyone to only people I mention. All right, now I'm gonna go enjoy my dinner. Like that's what I'm doing. Like now I'm like, I don't want to just get out of here.
Yeah, it got insane real fast. You're able to mute tweets on Twitter, right? So like if you mute a tweet, you can get rid of
stuff.
Yeah, I do mute the conversation. I live off that. Yeah,
man, I gotta do that because holy smokes, I got battles of war being waged.
Wars back and forth.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah. They're going into technical aspects of everything. This shit.
Yeah, but on the Halo multiplayer
Yes.
preview, I did play some of it again because they added a new map. They added like strongholds as a mode. They added capture the flag as a mode. And what I walked away with, as I wanted to make sure we put it here in our episode because I remember you and I, Cog, were very skeptical about this game on a campaign front, and we don't know how monetization will play out. So we want to remain cautious of that. But when it came to the actual mechanics, top to bottom now, like after playing it again, I'm like, this is really sound. This is extremely fun. And if anything, we'll have a really solid fundamental base for the multiplayer. Already seeing clips of people playing with all the toys they give you in different ways. I saw someone shoot a skewer into one of those jump lifts, and the skewer came back and they used a repulsor to like bounce it into someone else and kill them. Like there's just crazy stuff that you can do. And who knows if that'll happen, but there's a lot of potential there where you can pick it up and on a base level, like a grapple shot, I'm going to hit this wall and zip around the corner. Or someone who I saw threw a grenade to the bottom of I think it was a warthog. They blew up the warthog, grapple shot the warthog, went above the map and sniped someone in midair. Like there's just crazy shit that's just happening that I'll never do. But
I mean, but the fact that the sandbox makes it possible, that potential energy is so important to a game like this for me. It's why I liked PUBG, honestly. I was like, PUBG is a mess. I get it, but the shooting is really accurate and good. The sound is great, and it's a playground, a sandbox where anything can happen. You can throw a grenade up a hill and it will roll back down at you. And it's like, you just didn't predict that was going to happen, but you have to account for anything. It's like this really kinetic world. And I think that's what this Halo seems like it's really nailing. It's like, you feel like anything is possible. And that makes you want to keep going back in to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why for me, it was that the maps were, even though they only gave us really 4 maps to go through, I never had an issue with that because it's the ways that you can play with it. Like I was watching Chris Raygun put some clips up on his Twitter, and in I forgot the name of the map. It's bizarre, where you have that like little tube section that you can crawl through, and he shot like a grapple shot through it, and it was like a shortcut now, which was only accessible through there. I was like, I didn't even think of that. So now you can get from one end of the map to the other really fast, and I just think there's so much potential in that, and the navigation and the encounters that they're always going to be different, and that's what I think is going to really separate this game. Where again, this doesn't mean that the campaign's going to be good. This doesn't mean that music's going to be incredible, that it's going to be fairly monetized. But on a gameplay front, as long as they keep, of course, like BS gadgets out of it, that none of it's pay to win, we have to trust them on that. But fundamentally speaking right now, I feel very confident in the gameplay core. Like it's very, very fun.
Yeah, and I just to double down on that. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I kind of stopped myself because I'm having so much fun. The possibilities in the sandbox are tremendous. And again, we were fortunate to have 343 on Patrick Renzi and multiplayer. The thing about the multiplayer, it inspires so much confidence, right? I know me and you, man, we have our concerns with the campaign and lack of co-op at launch, lack of features at launch, right? Exactly. But, when we talk to him and you hear these things from the team and how they added to the complexity of the game, to me, I'll be honest, the multiplayer impressed so much, it relieved me a bit about the other things. Those things other things have to deliver on the single player front. But that's what it is. And the famous line, he's like, it's a Halo-ass Halo game. I'm like, you know what? I feel it. So salute to them. They're killing that aspect. That's the part I'm not too worried about. I'm not too worried about the multiplayer with Halo.
Yeah, when I said Halo game, when I was like first talking about it, I said it like, I'm not sure. Is this what people want? But I'm like, it seems like what happened there is I actually saw like the entire E3 presentation like months ahead of time. I'm like, not like weeks, and I'm looking, I'm like, that's a Halo game, and then I'm like, and I was like, not sure. It was weeks actually. Yeah, it was weeks. But and I'm like,
the scope.
And I'm like looking at this thing, and I'm like, yeah. But it's once people saw it, and they're like, I actually talked to a Halo fan. I'm like, here's what I saw. Here's what happens. He's like, that sounds really good. I'm like, oh, okay, all right then. And then people started coming around like, yeah, I want a Halo game. I'm like, okay, thank you for telling me that. I had no idea. I'm like, never been a real big Halo guy. But seeing the people react to this and then actually playing that first flight, I'm like, okay, I see what people are looking forward to from this. It is like a breath of fresh air in a really weird way where it's, I think the question asked, oh, is it like Call of Duty now? That's not the vibe I'm getting. The last one seemed more like Call of Duty than this one. Right. This one does feel like it is going back to being Halo, at least on the multiplayer side. And again, you guys keep mentioning the campaign. Who knows? No one knows. No one seems to know what's going to happen with that. So if you have right now, all the evidence we have to base our expectations on are these flights. And when it comes to that, I'm pretty confident.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll see. Defining Duke is brought to you by Raycon. Music serves as the tone setter for most things in our life. The hype during the gym, a track to mellow out on a nature walk, or something lightly resting in the background. With things slowly approaching normalcy, I found myself reconnecting with music through a lot of my hobbies, such as the gym. Going to the gym, I have a playlist on Spotify called Lift Like a Gamer, featuring tracks from Neo, The World Ends With You, and Metal Gear Rising. Yeah, imagine me bench pressing to JRPGs, because that's exactly what's happening. Or my writing playlist with tracks from Dragon Quest, Danganronpa, Octopath Traveler, all helping me create that vision in my head and putting the ideas on paper. And it's through Raycon that I'm able to do all of this, which have 32 battery life, so you can listen to what you want, when you want, for a very long time. And they start at half the price of other brands. So create your own soundtrack with Raycon. Right now, Defining Duke listeners can get 15% off their Raycon order at buyraycon.com/Duke. That's buyraycon.com/Duke to save 15% on Raycons. Buyraycon.com/Duke. Number one on the news now, let's get into it. Arriving on Xbox Game Pass September 30th, or if you're a free listener, it'll already be available, is Marvel's Avengers from developer Crystal Dynamics. That developer should sound familiar, as they have been tasked with helping Xbox first-party studio The Initiative in developing Perfect Dark. Now the studio's latest release has been added to the service for console, PC, and cloud. It will come packed with all of its DLC, including the recently released War for Wakanda expansion. Interestingly, Daryl Gallagher sits as the studio head of The Initiative. This came after a stint of being studio head at Crystal Dynamics from 2009 to 2016. Alex Watson writes in, "Hey there, Dukes. So what exactly do you think the role of Crystal Dynamics is serving on Perfect Dark? I see a lot of people on Twitter saying this is totally normal and giving the example that Naughty Dog worked with 13 plus external studios on The Last of Us Part 2. But those comparisons seem off base, as I'm sure Naughty Dog wasn't outsourcing to, say, Rockstar. They were going to studios that specifically do support work. So given that The Initiative is working with such a talented and high-profile studio, what do you think the dynamic will be? I'm thinking this will very much be a full collaboration with Crystal giving input on design, story, etc. Final decisions and disputes will, of course, be settled by The Initiative. But I'm thinking Crystal is a full partner here, which sounds great to me. Would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks, Alex." A lot to digest here, gentlemen. Who wants to go first?
Let me do it, because I mean
this is you, bro.
So the story I put out today basically says that it's a partner, but it is being brought in to like fill in gaps and to basically to complete what The Initiative was always going to be, or what they wanted to be for this project. And whether they did that through hiring or hiring a support studio, they were going to do something like this. The key here is Daryl Gallagher's relationship with Crystal Dynamics. He did say from the beginning, I think, like, hey, Crystal Dynamics might be an option. Maybe they're going to be busy, but if they're not busy, then we can bring them in. And it turned out they're not busy. And the reason for that is pretty confusing, I think. Why wouldn't they be busy working on something for Square Enix? But they're not.
Someone said that earlier. Continue.
Yeah, but no, absolutely. No, you're right, though. So that's weird. So, but they're not busy. So they have an opening, like, okay, let's go for it. And are they going to give him input on design and all that stuff? I think that seems likely, but I actually don't think that's also too abnormal. I think a good example here is something like Sakurai working with Koei Tecmo, I think, on Super Smash Brothers.
Was it Bandai or Koei? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's Bandai. You're right.
Okay, sorry.
Bandai Namco. No, you're right. Thank you. Bandai Namco, like they work with Koei Tecmo and a lot of other stuff. They work with Bandai Namco on Smash Brothers.
Right.
And yeah, Sakurai does a lot of the key designing, but he doesn't make every design decision. He doesn't make every single decision for how the levels are going to work. He lets the team that they hired to do that work do a lot of that work. It just makes sense. And this is also something that's actually not too new for Microsoft either. They've brought in teams like Sega's Creative Assembly and Sega's Relic to work on games for them. They're just now what they're doing is they have a team ready to go with the initiative, and they're just bringing in a team to kind of help them work on stuff. And it's going to be a collaboration, and it's going to be an amalgamation of these two ideas of, is this just a support studio or is this a partner? I think the answer to that question is yes. It's going to be both of those things.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Cog, what about you, man? How are you feeling?
Yeah, we talked about it on Ultimate, and the one that we just put up, and it's so interesting, right? We definitely, the only eyebrow raise was like, oh, okay, I personally didn't remember anything. So obviously, Jeff gave some great examples, and to me, I had a question back for Jeff on this in reference to, the initiative itself moving forward post Perfect Dark. Right. And I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on, because there's a theory that I kind of got going, but I don't know if it's true. I'm just speculating. Sure. Where it's like, is this now, have we reached this shift in game development, right? Where it's like, okay, you're making a studio in a pandemic, post-pandemic type of situation. It's a little harder to get teams together and stuff like that. And obviously we know Daryl has relationships, so is it a situation where you can see possibly the initiative saying, okay, this may be our blueprint or plan all along with developing games under us, almost using their namesake, like the initiative. We initiate, we kind of set the framework, and then we get another team in to kind of execute. Do you see that, or you think that's off? It's just a kind of off kind of thing.
I think you're right. I think what I've heard is a lot of what we're seeing now was the plan from the beginning. And people go back to that quote of, I don't know who said it, might have been Daryl Gallagher, but they're like, we're going to remain small and nimble or whatever. I'm paraphrasing there. Agile. Agile. Yeah. It's like, when that's going to require them to probably remain around 70 to 150 people at most. And they're probably going to start these projects. And then when they're ready, bring in a big support studio. And whether or not that's Crystal Dynamics or someone else next time is probably going to greatly depend on how this goes. And I think they will be open to the idea of, okay, no, let's scale the initiative up to a full 700-person studio, whatever they need. That's also an option down the line. But if this works, I imagine that they're just going to stick with it, because there's a lot of benefits here where they have a lot of really key talented people who work at the initiative proper. You just keep letting them come up with ideas, letting them prototype, which is the thing that really is the key to a great game. It's just years of prototyping. It's something that Mark Cerny came up with years and years ago. It's what made Respawn so good, is they're really good at prototyping. Let the initiative just be this really great prototype studio. Once they're ready to execute and scale up, which is what has happened with Perfect Dark this year, where now it's time to scale up and really work on this. And you have two options there. Spend a year, 2 years hiring enough people to actually do that, or bring in a studio that's ready to work on it right now. And to me, one of those sounds way more efficient than the other. And I know people say oh, it's strange because Naughty Dog doesn't do this. And it's like, well, Naughty Dog's already a 700, 800 person studio, whatever. They already have a lot of people ready to go. And then when they need to bring in support studios, they have support studios dedicated to this that they bring in. I think this is just a slight difference on that same idea. It's just maybe this is the way it's going to work with the initiative, where they'll just remain this small, nimble team, and they'll come back every time and say, okay, is Crystal Dynamics ready to go? No, they're busy. Okay, we'll find someone else, and there will be someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Crystal Dynamics availability in general, because I thought as time went on, that's just the thing that sticks out. Is at first, I'm guilty of this too. You look at the initiative, you're like, all right, you're the new guy here. What's going on? Why are you needing help so early? That makes a lot of sense as everyone started to learn over time. It's like, okay, this seems like a scaling up matter. But with Crystal Dynamics, they just released late last year Avengers. Avengers was broken at launch. I had the unfortunate time of playing about 30 to 40 hours of the game for a review. So it was a good time. Video did well though. So, hey, not too bad.
There you
go.
Anyway.
Yeah, right. And so I went ahead, reviewed it. Wasn't that great. Clearly needed a lot of work. They've been working on it. Releasing little updates here or there. Spider-Man's still not in the game for PlayStation fans. They just released War for Wakanda. I haven't played anything post-patch, to be honest with you.
Ooh,
We're seeing it being
gotta play
brought
that.
into Game Pass, which Cog and I, we willed into existence ever so slightly
Well
on
done,
that
guys.
last video. And with Crystal Dynamics being available, why aren't they working on Avengers is the real question. Is it that dead? Because we were looking at the player count. And it's like, okay, it's very low. It's at like just over 1,000 on Steam, I should mention. And maybe it'll be a lot higher now with Game Pass and, of course, other consoles there. Like I'm sure PlayStation with the Spider-Man announcement, that drove some copies there where they had a more active player base, or at least you'd hope so. But with Crystal Dynamics, like, why are they available, right? Like that's, what do you guys think on that? Because I can't help but wonder if it's just like, all right, it may just be as grim as it sounds, which is, yeah, this failed. Like we're going to slowly peel off of it.
Yeah, that's the question I have for Jeff too, because it's like, me and King have this joke on IOP, and it's like we call, we feel like Darryl Gallagher might be a smooth operator here. You know what I mean? Like, former friend, head of Crystal Dynamics, you kind of know what's going on in the other building, and I just find we've speculated, it's fun, but I just find it weird that if you're Crystal Dynamics, Square has nothing for you to work on next. Now, call me crazy, Jeff, that doesn't seem to be a situation where, like, for your future is a good thing, right? and I also find it interesting that Square is willing to take a bag from Microsoft to say, go over there and do work here.
Get out of my sight. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, rinsing you out cheap. Get out of my sight. Yeah. Listen, it's not like I'm sure that Crystal Dynamics pitched what they're going to work on next to Square Enix. Square Enix said no. That's the thing. They're like, we're probably we're talking to Microsoft right now. We know, like, you know Darryl Gallagher, and that's our alternative here. And everything you pitch to us sounds like a bigger risk than just taking the bag. And I mean, that's clearly what did happen. Now, but why would that not be worth the risk? And I think it has everything to do with what you guys said. Avengers, they're looking at that and they're like, hey, we got beat pretty bad by that. That was an expensive failure, and we can't have another one of those. We can't even have, and like, we're not even really willing to give up an opportunity cost. Like, we got a guaranteed thing here from Microsoft. Let's do it. And then maybe Microsoft is dangling at the end of this line, like, okay, we're trying things out. Let's see how it goes. And then maybe we'll buy them from you at the end. And maybe Square Enix is looking for that. Now, I don't know. I wasn't able to find that for sure. So that's speculation, but I just would not be at all surprised if that's the case. I just think that when it comes to Crystal Dynamics, I think Square Enix is just not in the mood. not in the mood for you right now. And it's like, I think it's a shame, because it's like Square Enix should not be the one being all hoity-toity here. This is the company that put out Balan Wonderworld, The Quiet Man. What was that bad Metal Gear Solid ripoff they put out a few years ago? I can't remember that. A terrible game. These are not like just like, they missed. These are worst game of the year material year after year after year, not coming from their Western studios. And so when they have like a big budget Western studio game fail, they're like, hey, that's why we're not making money. I'm like, you're not making money because of everything you do. You are bad at this in a lot of cases. You are so lucky you have Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy 14 right now. But it's like, Crystal Dynamics is going to be the whipping boy right now because Avengers is just such a high profile failure. So I think that's what's happening.
I agree entirely. I talk sometimes about how Final Fantasy VII Remake to me is like, I don't know if it even sold well enough to help pull them out of the crater that was...
Before Integrate, we're talking 5 million copies sold. And listen, that's a big game. But was that can't be the expectations. Now, you don't hear that from Square Enix. They only talk about expectations when it's a Western game. But I don't think 5 million copies sold for Final Fantasy VII Remake, it was enough at that point. Now, I'm sure it sold more since Integrate. But like Luigi's Mansion 3... 10 million copies. Like that's, I mean, what are we talking about here? And Luigi's Mansion 3 did not cost as much to make as Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I get it. There's a Nintendo Switch effect happening right now, but that's the reality. That is your comparison point, where Final Fantasy VII Remake is half the size of Luigi's Mansion 3. That doesn't sound right to me. So
I agree.
I think, to me, they seem like if they didn't have Final Fantasy 14 right now, I think they'd be in a much dire position. I think you would be hearing some like shaky stuff coming out of them about like, hey, what do we do? But thankfully they have this like money making machine right now, and they're just relying on that to keep them going.
I've talked about Neo: The World Ends With You on this show. Like, this is a really small game that came out, and while it didn't look like the biggest investment in the world, there's a ton of art behind that game, a ton of music. There's a lot of story, voice acting, like high profile voice actors in there. Like, it wasn't a small investment where that game even in Japan, where I'm sure that was probably their biggest audience, sold like 30,000 copies in its launch month. Like,
yeah,
it did really bad. Like, Square's missed a lot. And that's why I think they're doing something like this. And it's just weird that Crystal Dynamics happened to be available. But it does, you did bring up the point, Jeff, that we'll only speculate on, which is I've just talked a lot about how Xbox and just companies in general, ever since the Bethesda acquisition, it's always been like, what's the gargantuan thing that we can entirely absorb? And I'm like, it could also just be like sports, where it's like, let's extract a player from a team. Like, we're not buying the whole team. Let's just get like one studio from a brand. And maybe Crystal Dynamics ends up being that if the partnership's there. And Square is like, get out of our sight.
You get Tomb Raider, you buy Tomb Raider at the same time, kind of make the IP, and it all makes sense, right? If you kind of like get that IP with the talent that has now proven itself to you. I think Microsoft's actually in the process of testing a lot of talent. Like, who's working on Contraband? I can't remember the name of this. Is it? The Just Cause studio,
Avalanche,
right? Yeah. Avalanche. They haven't bought Avalanche. Avalanche. This is a an external studio that's doing a first party game. I think they're testing out Avalanche. They might end up buying Avalanche. I think. Flight Simulator's doing really well. I think Asobo's was in a similar situation where I think Asobo's like, hey, we're thinking about buying you. I think Microsoft is doing a lot of that. And once they reassess, they're like, okay, now we've seen how these teams work. What do we like? What don't we like? I think with Avalanche and Contraband, what I heard is they missed a lot of their key markers. They were like, you have to have this done by then, and they kept missing those. So it's like, okay, maybe we don't like working with Avalanche. Maybe we don't need them, but like we'll publish this game. We'll make sure it comes out. We'll back them up. Make sure that it's the best game it can possibly be. But when all is said and done, when we look back at the process, were we happy with it? And so I think there's a chance they'll pass up on Avalanche. Now, with Crystal Dynamics, you imagine with that relationship with Daryl Gallagher, maybe it's going to go really well, and they say, okay, let's go for it. But at the end of the day, they could also just say, hey, that worked well. Let's just do that again. And everyone's really happy. And let's just do the same deal again. That's fine. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, we all made money here. Why wouldn't we just keep doing it? Square Enix's fortunes could change. They could have different leadership by then. So this is not a guarantee. I just think these are a lot of the things that all these companies are thinking about right now.
No, I agree. And last point I said, I completely agree with that. And I think it almost feels on brand with Microsoft with prior studio acquisitions. Sometimes, they were in the greatest state at the time. We've heard the stories, obviously, Double Fine. There's a couple of studios, where it's just like, wow, really, I've been fortunate. We had Compulsion on, their story is extremely interesting, how they're lucky to even be around. They had like 2 chances of survival and they're still here. So, it fits that mold. But I think it's what you said, Jeff, where it's more fluid. They start the relationship, see what happens, see how it works out, and then eventually, if it makes sense, things will happen. But yeah, it's definitely something I want to be, charting specifically with what you call it, with Crystal Dynamics. And I just think King is hilarious when he says it's an all natural situation with Daryl Gallagher. King's loving this. He's all about this.
Bringing in pros, like, hey man, don't worry.
He's like, friends with benefits, but you don't like it. Bring her over. You can send her over here.
Just don't get fired. Just don't get fired. I'm gonna get that paycheck's coming, man. Don't worry.
Exactly.
I think Xbox is effectively taking potentially a PlayStation route with this one, right? I think once again, after they acquired Bethesda, that was the expectation, was like, oh, they're going to go get Ubisoft. They're going to go get Take-Two. Like, they're going to go buy everyone else out. And I think what you're seeing is now that they've sort of solidified, like, okay, like we've got 23 first-party studios. Let's take our time with these. And like we saw with Insomniac, like, let's build up the relationship as PlayStation and get them for $220 million. Just because we have a lot of money doesn't mean we need to spend all of it. I think it's going to be really awesome to watch them develop.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there is a pressure on the other side of that I always bring up and I always point to people, and it has nothing to do with games and everything to do with global economics, and that is interest rates and inflation are a big concern for these companies right now, and it's more of a concern this week than it has been up until this entire point, and it's been one of the reasons why these companies are spending so much money. Their money is going to be worth less next year than it's worth now. So if you have money sitting in the bank, sitting in a bond, sitting in wherever, in any sort of market, it's going to be worth less because of inflation. And so they're like, let's spend it now. And I think this week we're getting news like inflation's probably going to be even worse than what we were expecting through the next year. And these companies, they pay attention to that stuff. So while I do agree with you 100% that I think Microsoft's like, I wish we could just take this stuff slow and look around and build these relationships up and do what Sony's been doing. Just like you said, I think that's absolutely right. There is going to be someone, the bean counter, saying, hey, this money is like, yeah, it says this number, but that number is going to be worth this number next month. And then a year from now, it's going to be worth this. But 5% less is huge when you're talking about billions and billions of dollars. So
For sure.
they're going to want to spend it sooner rather than later. I think that's going to maybe across all these companies really juice up this market of acquisitions here before the end of the year. So that's all speculation, but I think that's going to happen.
No, it's a really good point, though. It's well founded. So I appreciate you bringing it up. And that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye out for, because the expectation was this year we would get another, just an expectation, by the way, that Xbox would get someone else, especially with, it makes a lot more sense what you say now with how PlayStation's just munching everyone up.
Yeah, they got to right now. Yeah.
Did they make an acquisition?
They did.
Yeah,
they got Faltric, I think was their name, and they were like former Sony Liverpool devs, and they're being rolled into a current studio that's already part of PlayStation.
The old Wipeout guys,
the Fire Sprite guys, and then Fire Sprite acquired someone. So right. It's
like
just going to keep happening. Like Nintendo even acquired like the Luigi's Mansion 3 team because of the same thing. Right. That team was going to sell because they knew they're worth more now than they've ever been, and the acquisition fever is so high. They're like, we're going to sell now. And Nintendo's like, all right, we'll pay. So even Nintendo doing that is, I think, a good sign that this stuff is going to keep happening, at least for Nintendo the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the most telling part of it all. I actually made a video on it today as we record this before we even had this talk, about how I was like, Nintendo seeing them get involved is like a very, very telling sign.
Yes.
If they're making a purchase.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. Number 2 on the news. Speaking of acquisitions, this is a beautiful transition. Here comes a new challenger. Netflix made a splash this week by announcing their first ever video game studio acquisition. The developer now under their umbrella is Night School Studio. Night School is known for their work on Oxenfree as well as After Party, and are now chipping away on Oxenfree's sequel. In a write-up, the studio wrote that they feel like this is a natural pairing, and that Netflix's team has shown the utmost care for protecting their studio culture and creative vision. Now, obviously, with the information that we just all discussed, I think this is interesting because I was thinking to myself, with Game Pass growing so much, you have to imagine Netflix making studio acquisitions really just almost directly speaks to the idea that they're going to try to make their own gaming subscription service. You would have to think, right?
Yeah.
What you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of factors here. I think that they're going to try to continue to grow Netflix, that business. And that means speaking to different audiences. And they have come pretty close to saturating the kind of people who might subscribe to Netflix. And they'll keep growing here and there, and they have new markets they can move into. But that stuff they've already figured out. Like, they know their game plan for going down that route and competing with Disney and all this stuff. They're really good at analyzing data. And I think that actually brings up the other point where they know who is using Netflix, and they know, like, when they leave Netflix, what they're going to do. And a lot of times when you leave Netflix, it's because you're going to play a video game. And they want to say, okay, no, we want you to stop watching a movie on Netflix, or stop watching a show, or stop watching The Witcher, and then go play something like The Witcher on Netflix. We want to keep you in Netflix. So that's what I think is happening here. And that's their long-term goal here. Mm-hmm. It's going to start small, and it's going to look like this for quite some time. I do think they have an idea of what it looks like down the line. How they get from here to there seems pretty fuzzy. And I don't know if it's a separate sort of Game Pass thing, or if it's just ways of boosting who Netflix appeals to. And I think that's probably the more likely route.
Interesting. What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, this is interesting to me. I mean, we heard the rumblings. We heard, them being interested in the game sphere. Now, this acquisition, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm in a wait and see approach, because it's like, it reminds, I don't want to put them completely in the Stadia bag, but it kind of reminds me of the initial Stadia announcement. And I need to see the level of commitment, the consistency, because I remember with Stadia, if you remember their press conference, it was very aggressive. They had some studio heads from some people from, with a lot of experience and reputation. They were having their own first party studio. And then as time went on, we start to see that deteriorate. Now, Netflix obviously is in a different situation. They have this established brand, established user base, movies and stuff like that. But it is interesting. I think, Jeff, you made a good point. They probably looking at the analytics and say, okay, if they have people watching these movies, and they're leaving, like you said, to go play a game,
and they know,
then they know it, right? So how can we keep them in, right? And that's the part I want to see, the integration. I also want to see what styles of games that they choose to go for. Is it going to be all that, like the Telltale stuff, like soft touch input stuff, not twitchy, like, are we going to be playing a first person shooter? You know what I'm saying? Are we going to play, those type of, I want to see the genres, how aggressive they are, and if they're committed. So this is interesting to watch to me. But what about you, Matty?
Yeah, I think out of between Netflix and Google, I would probably trust Netflix a little bit more because I feel like they already had a format that at base value works enough for entertainment. I think this is also just a product of just even analytics aside of seeing when they leave where they go, that gaming is growing. You just have to look at some of their partnerships, like they teamed up with CD Projekt Red to do the Cyberpunk anime, and the Castlevania anime is extremely popular. The Witcher on Netflix, really, really popular. Like that pushed the game's base for The Witcher 3 on Steam to a new record way after its launch too, like 5 years after its launch, something like that, which was insane to see. So they've seen that, hey, if we get a really big show, we can boost the game. What if we teamed up with someone to make it, like, let's say they got Witcher season 2 and they launched that alongside some Witcher game that was on their service. This is down the line.
Right.
They're probably thinking that very long term on how that could really benefit their service. And I could see that working as like a nice revolving door for them effectively. And that's why I think they're going to take the digital route. I think a lot of these companies are, because one of the things I anticipate is the reason we're seeing so many acquisitions is also what Jeff said, but how can we create Game Pass competitors to make sure not everyone's going to one place? And I think Netflix stands one of the strongest chances next to PlayStation of standing up as a true competitive brand in gaming with a subscription service, just because people already know them for that. Like they're sort of the pioneers of that.
Yeah, you just kind of already have it too. Most people already have Netflix, and so if they expand what gaming is in there, eventually they'll have to raise the price and all that stuff. But that's true for every single thing. Like everything is going to go up in price. So yeah, big deal. But they'll find ways to leverage that data. And I think that point about The Witcher is just, I think, so key. It's like they saw people go play The Witcher everywhere else, and they're just like, why weren't they, like, someone, I'm sure one of the executives were like, why weren't they playing The Witcher here? Why'd they go somewhere else when they could have been playing it here? And everyone like, well, we don't do games. Like we should have thought of this. Like we should have known. And they want to capture that going forward. And I think that they have a good chance of doing it. It's just they also, I think, have an equally good chance of going Stadia. Like,
that's fair.
This is a tough business. You have to know gaming really well. I have actually more faith in Netflix than I did in Google or Amazon. I know New World came out; it's doing very well. But these are companies that they know a lot of different stuff, and they go to gaming. And they're like, man, making games is hard. I think Netflix fully actually does understand how hard games is, but I think they have so much data. They know how people consume entertainment, and they're so hyper focused on that I think they know some cracks in the armor, and they'll attack where PlayStation and Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo are all weak. And it'll start with like, hey, like women are watching The Witcher, and then they're going to go play The Witcher. But maybe they would prefer if like it was just right there and it was much more like one of these other games. I think that they're going to find these cracks and exploit on that. And whether or not that works, we'll have to wait and see. But until then, I don't know. I'm interested to see how they do it.
I could totally see it being a situation where like whether you pause the show and you leave it paused for a while, or when the episode ends, it's like, did you enjoy this episode or enjoying The Witcher? And you see The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt box art there, and you can like click on it and it just loops you into it. Like if they made it all into one service where it's like Netflix games and then Netflix TV or movies, whatever. I think that would it's so obvious. I feel like it actually works extremely well, and it wouldn't feel forced like something such as Google Stadia, which some will argue is ahead of its time. But just for me, I don't think it worked because of their execution with it. Amazon as well just comes in and you think like, well, bags of cash will solve everything. Manpower will solve everything. But as you said, Jeff, data, cracks in the armor, that's going to be key because they understand the intricacies of just making something, whether it be TV and entertainment or now games. I think that's going to help them out a lot. But what do you guys think of Night School Studio being the first one they absorb? Oxenfree developer. Like I said, they made After Party. They're working on Oxenfree 2. They're going to continue to do that here with Netflix. They're saying, hey, they're protecting our studio culture, which is likely, weekends off, no crunch, all that stuff, and the creative vision, like go make the game you want. So how are you feeling about their future, if at anything at all?
It fits really well with what I think if you're going to start this and you want something that kind of fits with what Netflix is right now, and then you can grow it later. But right now, you want something that makes sense when you're on Netflix. I think an Oxenfree is something that makes sense, right? It's a very conversational-driven game where a lot of it's just back and forth, like repertoire. I'm not gonna be able to say that word, so why am I even trying? Conversation between other characters, and they're gonna and that's where you get the tension. That's where you get the gameplay and the mechanics, and it's the stuff that people are going to be used to from watching a lot of TV on Netflix, where it's all written about characters sparring with one another. So it's going to be a natural fit. And then I think I'm more curious about like what's the second studio. Is the second studio going to be exactly another one of these, and this is what this is going to be for a long time, or is the second studio going to be like, and now here's a first-person shooter, right? Like, but for right now, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Jeff, you said it best. That's literally where I'm at. It just I want to see moving forward because to me that seems like you said on brand, something that makes sense. I just want to see if they expand and go to other genres like you talked about. We'll just have to watch it, wait and see. But to your point, Matty, I think you made a good point in the sense that, you know, they do have the data. They have great ways of integration. And let's be honest, y'all. I mean, even Game Pass, Xbox itself, Game Pass kind of modeled in some respect off of something that they created.
Satya Nadella worked with Reed Hastings a lot, who's the CEO of Netflix. He was almost his mentor. So yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go. You know, at the end of the day, it's something that I think, like you said, Netflix is smart enough to say, okay, they're doing this, but you know, we need to get a piece of this, and we need to figure out a way to integrate this to keep our base into this now gaming sphere. So cool to watch.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll hear more from them over the year as well. Let's go into number 3. Speculation is ramping up that Xbox Game Pass may have passed another milestone. In Yahoo News interview on The Grill featuring Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick and head of Xbox Phil Spencer, Strauss asked Phil, doesn't Game Pass have something like 30 million plus subscribers? Strauss would be privy to this information given that some of his company's games are on the service. Phil was quick to quell the potential storm brewing by iterating that the last officially announced number was 18 million subscribers. Now, he did let out a little smirk, a little laugh. I don't like to analyze the
people's body
facial,
language,
emotional response. But you can tell there was a little bit of, he fucked up, but you know, whatever. Yeah, we might have 30 million. What of it?
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, please.
I thought this was like classic, like media training, like he knew he had that face, like, well, you know, officially we said only 18. You know what I'm saying? Look,
that's good for Phil though, because Phil is he's not Jim Ryan, but he's also not the most media trained guy in the world. He does just kind of say what he's thinking a lot of times. Yes. So that was pretty good of him to like fall back on that immediately.
Yeah, shout out to them. I mean, shout out to the Grill. Shout out to the Grill. You know what I'm saying? I did catch a little bit of it. I just thought it was interesting. Look, if it is, that would be something, you know, I think they want to get in front of and then, you know, with a blog post or whatever and celebrate it. They'll do it when it's official, you know, kind of thing. But, you know, I'm curious with Jeff. I was going to ask you, like, you know, obviously this is so important to them, right? And I know a lot of people right now getting caught up with the data of NPD and UK sales charts and, you know, all this and, you know, people are not buying the game and what's going on, Jeff? What's happening, Jeff? And I get it. You know, there's as me and Matty appropriately say, the concern, a lot of fake concern from some people.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's all good. It's all good. You know, but in reality, there is some questions, right? And
sure.
And my thought process, and you tell me, Jeff, is that I feel that this is the data that they are concerned about. Like how many people subscribe to this service and this number continues to go up, right? So what do you think with this whole situation? And then, you know, obviously what we're talking about in reference to sales versus the Game Pass subscription thing.
I will be very surprised if it's 30 million right now. Okay. I think so there was Jez Corden from Windows Central, and he's walked this back. So he said this was not exactly, he was misled or something, which made a mistake. So I just want to say, but he said it was 23 million, and this was a few months ago. And this was after the 18 million number. And then Microsoft came out and they did their quarterly report, and they didn't say a number. And the reason they didn't say a number, I've told Jez this, is because of Jez Corden. Because Jez Corden said 23 million, and it wasn't 23 million. It was a little bit lower than that. I think it was closer to 20, 21 million. And they didn't want it to seem like, oh, we heard 23 million, and now it's 21 million. It's going down. So they didn't want the market markets to react that way, and that makes sense. I think if it's fucking Jez, right?
Fucking
it's
Jez.
fucking guy.
I said dad of
Jez.
Xbox as a joke, but holy shit.
Yeah,
He's
right?
literally the
Come
dad
on.
of Xbox.
He actually is dad of Xbox. Holy fuck.
Yeah. Fucking clown. I love you, Jez.
Shout out to Jez.
If it was 30 million, I think they would have said something. I think so. If it is 30 million, by the next earnings report, we'll hear it. They will say that number. Or if it's like 28 million, they'll say it. My guess is that it was that 21 million range around E3, and that I think they had a good E3 and probably a pretty decent summer. And they probably did add some subscribers during that time. I don't think they're losing it, but I don't think they're adding at the rate that they were hoping for either. At least that was the sense I got. So I think that there's a good chance that it's gone up and it'll be a pretty decent number. But if it's close to 30 million, they will say so very soon. So I'll be surprised, but hey, good for them. They're doing what they want to do.
Yeah. I'm thinking that number was a little high for sure. I would have, in my head, before any of this, ballparked it at probably 25 with E3 really giving them a big boost and then some of their releases. But I think what's going to have to happen for them to push some really big numbers is, we saw this summer they filled out stuff for core gamers with releases like Psychonauts, The Ascent. There were releases like that were exciting to us probably, but on the level of growing a service, they were more additive. Like you would stumble across it. And they need more things like Back 4 Blood. I think Back 4 Blood's going to be a really big game, but they need more of that. And I understand it's very easy to sit here as a consumer and be like, oh, please spend more, but grow the service. Like of course, as a consumer, I want them to add the big games there, but I also am like of the mindset, like I don't care what their subscriber number is on a level of like how much money they're making.
I drive a Nissan. I'm pretty sure they filed for bankruptcy or something like that. I don't give a shit. As long as my warranty is still covered, I'm fine. So
exactly.
Like that,
yeah. So I think for them to grow the service to a number like that, they need more of those pops like we saw with Outriders and then MLB The Show, like that consistency there of, oh my God, another one, to the point where it's almost expected. Right. And I think really what they need is, and they seem to have got that with E3, is if they saw strong growth or decent growth with what they have now from June till the end of this year, then they're likely going to look at it and say like, okay, month-to-month additions is what we need, but we need bigger of that. And how do we do that? And how much do we spend on that? And one of the places they spent money was Avengers, which is one of those, I call it like a half measure game. You kind of toss your hands at it. Like it's one of those things that's additive. I'm wondering what the next big thing beyond Back 4 Blood is going to be that brings people into the service. Of course, there's Forza. Forza's huge. There's
and Halo. Yeah.
Those two will play big factors. But of course, third party wise, I think that's what excites people. It's like, I don't got to spend money on this. Like that's the mentality it brings. And so it'll be interesting to see, of course, as always, what they do to bring those numbers up to that 30 million that Strauss was talking about.
I did say this on Grub Snacks last week, and I haven't put it into a report yet. Maybe at the end of a story, but they have literal billions of dollars earmarked for getting games onto Game Pass. This is beyond acquisitions. This is beyond, and so when people talk about Game Pass being profitable or not, like it's clearly not, because this money is set aside right now for it to be spent on Game Pass, and the subscribers they have right now is not making up for like the billions that they are planning to spend. I think the issue they're running into is a lot of publishers are just being like, listen, that's a good deal, but we're just not sure if we're willing to like change up our whole business model yet. We want to try the old way. And then we know we can rely on you to be there if later down the line we go to Game Pass. We know you're still going to be there. And that's a tough situation where Microsoft's not going to be like, no, you do it our way or the highway or something like that. They're going to be like, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll be here. So yeah, a lot of publishers are still just saying no right now and not taking that big guaranteed money, even though seems like it's a lot of money. I think that will shift slowly. I think they are working on a sort of charm offensive. I think that's what's happening with Square Enix. Square Enix does like Game Pass. They do. And it's just
Sega,
like,
man.
Yeah, it's Sega, absolutely. They're just like, let's get them over the hump so that when it comes time to do another one of these games, let's just do it from the beginning. It's going to be so big for your game. I know you think like it's going to hurt it. It's not. Look what it did for Avengers. And then look what it did for, what's the shooter that Square Enix put on their day.
Outriders.
Outriders. Look what it did for Outriders. Like that game wouldn't have made as much of a splash. Like, that. And look at the data with us. They're doing this charm offensive. And I think they're
around the back. Like,
you know that.
I like Jeff in the ballroom. Like, continue.
Yeah.
Look what we did for you.
Look at this thing I made in Prezi for you. Look at this. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think it's going to work eventually, but it's going to take time. And really what they have to worry about is, I was going to say from now until Starfield, but really now until next E3, because next E3 is going to be when they could talk about Perfect Dark and Avowed and all these other games for sure. Almost certainly. We might see some of those things earlier, some of those things a little bit later, but generally by next E3, they are going to have a very compelling story to tell about what Game Pass is going to get you. And you are already going to be coming off of probably right around that time, Redfall and stuff like that. And you're probably still playing Halo multiplayer and all these things. So they'll have a really compelling story to tell at that point. Between now and then, though, what are you going to have? And they got to start spending some of this money. I mean, their fiscal year ends in July. So they have a lot, billions of dollars to spend by July. What is that going to look like? I think they're going to try to make some really big moves here pretty soon.
I do want to throw out there, of course, this will be answered, I think, even before this goes live, but just for the sake of our conversation, I remember seeing, I think it was the PR for Dying Light saying oh yeah, we've been sitting on an announcement for a while now. We're gonna make it tomorrow. I'm just nah, it's too early for Game Pass, right? That's the thing. It's way too early.
Made at the last minute is what I always heard. But I mean, maybe that's the thing too. You never know. But I've always heard that that
they just killed pre-orders.
The last minute. Yeah,
right. That's a good point. Yeah. I want to ask this question because you made a point in reference to sometimes the pitch. And some third-party developers are saying, publisher or whatever, saying, we'll wait and see. We don't know just yet. There's a little bit of push and pull with some. My question is, do you think that obviously Sony clearly must recognize this, right? They clearly must see that, Game Pass, Microsoft trying to be very aggressive with Game Pass. Do you think that, this is my theory, it puts the developer or the publisher in a situation where it's hey, well, Sony's willing to pay this, versus, for exclusivity or what have you, and thus the price went up, so to speak. Do you think that scenario is even feasible, where Game Pass initially was so disruptive with certain titles that now maybe Sony is a bit more aggressive with stashing exclusive deals and things of that nature?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what the strategy was. People are oh, Sony always paid to get third-party exclusives, and I'm I don't remember that many third-party exclusives during PS4 and even PS3. There was some during those generations, but they are being much more aggressive now. There was reporting. Imran Khan from Fanbyte reported this. I think he was they are planning to spend a lot of money to get third-party exclusives, and there was Starfield was on the table for that sort of thing.
Yeah,
so
I remember that.
So that they were not doing that level of third-party exclusives through most of those last couple of generations. So and I think this was an exact and specific reaction to Game Pass. We are not going to do the blue version of the green Game Pass. We're not going to do that. Not really. We are going to be Sony. We're going to be PlayStation still. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this money and we're going to go get third-party exclusives, because that's what our gamers are used to, or they like that, and it's going to make this the place to play. But that's how we're going to fight Game Pass. I really think that was the strategy. And that has the inherent effect of what you're speaking to, of now these companies are got these two big money bags coming at them, and they can play them off of one another. And it's definitely pushing the price up for sure. And I think it's probably causing some issues for Game Pass getting these deals. I think it's still the philosophy argument that's hard for a lot of these people to get over. The people running these publishers, these third-party publishers, have been making games and selling them one sort of way for many, many years. And they know the industry changes a lot. They know that. But that doesn't mean they're running towards change. They're afraid of change. Everyone's afraid of change. They're not running toward it. They're still not sold on the idea that this is going to be good for them in the long run. And really, Microsoft, while they are going to make the argument that it will be, they can only point to certain factors to say, hey, it's good here, it's good there. But in the long term, we don't know for sure. We're going to have to play it out and see how it goes. So there's still a lot of unknowns. And that is the problem for Game Pass, I think.
Okay.
Right on.
Fair enough.
Defining Duke is brought to you by Chime. Chime is an award-winning app and debit card that believes your online checking account shouldn't cost you money. As someone who was the victim of a stolen debit card that then had their money spent on League of Legends skins, hearing that Chime has no overdraft fees, foreign transaction fees, monthly service fees, or transfer fees is a relief to someone such as myself. Even if you stay on top of your bills, what goes in and out of your account like me, things like this can just happen, and having Chime there to not charge you for something unfortunate is really nice. And they're not a no-name brand, as Chime has over 60,000 fee-free in-network ATMs at locations like Walgreens, 7-Eleven, CVS, and more. You can also send money to anyone, even if they aren't on Chime. No fees for you or cash out fees for them, and as someone performing wire transfers for all the work involving my business, this is a breath of fresh air. It's time to say goodbye to hidden fees. Join the millions of Americans already loving Chime. Sign up takes only 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started today at chime.com/Duke. That's chime.com/Duke. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees apply except at MoneyPass ATM in a 7-Eleven location and at any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Other fees, such as third-party and cash deposit fees, may apply. Number 4, after delaying the game to November 19th, 2021, DICE has revealed that the open beta for Battlefield 2042 will take place on October 8th and 9th. Early access to said beta goes from October 6th to the 7th and is available to those who pre-order the game. And I believe I have to add this in, EA Access members as well.
Okay.
Gentlemen, are you hopping into this at all?
I need to see this game for myself. I'm like, I was really excited. I thought the trailers at E3, like E3 and like right before E3 were really good. I'm like, yeah, that looks like a lot of fun. This might be my shooter this holiday. And now with the delay and people playing the alpha coming out saying like, oh, I'm not so sure. I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going to play for myself and see how I feel about it. So I'm going to try this out.
Yeah. They say in the alpha 8. Yeah, that's what they said. I didn't hear.
So yeah,
my facial expression went from like,
yeah, like, and I'm like, that's how so yeah, you went through the same process that I went through. I'm like, what's going on here? I was really hyped for this thing. Don't mess this up. And so they have people coming out of the alpha, and let's, this
alpha.
So this is alpha, and it's secondhand. I'm not sure if this is exactly what their feeling was. I do know that a lot of people were feeling negative about it. Was that just bugs, or was there something off about the game? I'm not exactly sure. So maybe it was just bugs, and they'll be able to fix that stuff up. And maybe that's the problem, why it's getting delayed. So I want to see it for myself and see how I feel about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, Matty, prior, super hype. Saw the trailer, saw my Levolution-y things. I see modern. I'm in. You know what I'm saying? I see that's the type of Battlefield I like. So I'm in. I definitely want to get a chance to, to get in that open beta and see what's going on. And, you tell me, Matty, where you at? Because I'm still excited, but I'm definitely a little concerned, when you hear some negative reaction.
Yeah, I felt like from the outside looking in, of course, this would just be the product of good marketing, that Battlefield 2042 is looking like the answer, right? Like it had the old stuff, the new stuff. I mean, granted, they went, we're axing the campaign. In my eyes, I'm like, I very rarely say this might be a good thing, because I've never played in my life a good Battlefield campaign or a compelling one. They very much feel strictly additive. So I was like, all right, I'm open to you guys going all in on multiplayer, because I look at something like Battlefront 2, when you stripped away the monetization and evolved it, it was excellent. So let's see what you got here at 2042. And it looks really encouraging from the outside. Now, hearing might not be it is a little disappointing, but just like Jeff, I want to go and lay my hands on this one, because I fell out of first-person shooters outside of the occasional ones like Doom Eternal. I'll come around for the big hitters, but otherwise, my infatuation with them from when I was in high school really has disappeared. And so, for me to actually be legitimately excited about not only 1 but 2 with Halo Infinite coming out is pretty rare. So it's going to be interesting to see them compete. And I've always had this idea, again, that Xbox wants to get Battlefield on Game Pass. Like, there's that close marketing, but not even that. Cog, you and I have talked about it. I feel like, I think his name was Walter, wrote in and sort of laid the groundwork for us on a deal where it was like, you know what? This is your year to kick COD in the balls, man. Like, this is your year to just kick them between the legs, get that Game Pass deal, do it in November, give people your November shooter and their December shooter, have them both there. Because if someone signs up for Game Pass, they're like, I don't like Halo, but I like Battlefield. You already got Battlefield 1, 5 on there. You got all the Battlefield games on there. And then you add 2042 to that mix. I mean, I just think there's something there. But beyond that alone, I'm looking forward to hopping into this open beta for sure. Can't wait to see what it's all about and what they offer with it.
Yeah, likewise.
Number 5, only one game has topped New World's concurrent player count at launch, and that was Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Amazon's new MMO made a huge impact as players are flocking to it, pushing their concurrent player count on Steam over 600,000 players. This beats out the likes of Dota 2, Apex Legends, PUBG, GTA 5, and many more extremely popular games. Is anyone into this game? Like, I was aware there was an interest, but no one in my circle was like, yo, gotta get in on that New World. Holy fuck.
Is your circle, does it involve anyone who spends a lot of time just watching the biggest people on Twitch? Because I feel like this is Amazon leveraging the Twitch like streamers and like paying them to play it, and then having the did basically like they're like that's what Fortnite did, right? When Fortnite went really big out of the gate with its battle royale launch, they paid a lot of streamers to play it, and it made a huge splash right away because of that. And a few other games have followed in those footsteps, but if there's one company that knows exactly how that works, it's the company that is running that, and that's Amazon, which owns Twitch. And so I think that this is, I think it's a product of them understanding how to leverage that huge marketing juggernaut. It is, I think I think this is evidence that we cannot overstate the power of getting a bunch of the biggest streamers in the world to play a game and having them create cycles of hype, where my understanding is, I think if you were in these streams, you would get free items for the game or maybe get a chance to play the game and stuff like that. So they're building excitement and keeping people watching, keep people glued in, and you're jumping from one stream to the next to try to get more of this free stuff. So I think it worked. I think it clearly worked. I think another thing is people really just want MMOs right now. I think in a way that after being in the pandemic for so long and finding this as a key way to escape and spend time with your friends. I think this is people have Discords now where this is where every day after work, I get on my Discord, I see what everyone's playing. And if there's a game we can all play together, that's the best. And I think this might be a situation where hey, let's just all go play New World. I think that there's a network effect happening here that is just, again, hard to overstate.
Yeah. And especially as someone who is very much into MMOs, I play Star Wars: The Old Republic now, but I look at something like Final Fantasy 14, and that's a game where it's doing extremely well, but there is I call it the suffering. You got to go through the base game to get to the expansion content, which is really good. And everyone's
but everyone's going to suffer together in New World, so it's okay, right?
Yeah, right. And everyone's suffering together. It's new. You haven't missed anything yet. You're getting in on the ground level, and we really haven't had a big MMO available like that. It's always been there. They're picking up steam over time. We got SWTOR dropping a big expansion at the end of this year. Again, Final Fantasy 14 continues to gain steam. ESO, I consider myself an Elder Scrolls vet, but even I sometimes steer away from ESO because I go in there and I'm these systems are complex. There's so much happening here. And I just want to do some quests, play the game, and move on with my life. But that's, I think, the chance that New World has. And to Jeff's point, striking at the right time, right? there is a product of that with game releases. Is sometimes people overanalyze it. I've been guilty of it, but at times it's just the timing of release plays a big factor. It's why indies do well in the summer because nothing else is happening. So people are whoa, it sold 1 million copies. It's there was nothing else to play. That's a big part of it. And people were more keen to spend $20 on a little thing and try it out.
Yep. Yeah, I think the Final Fantasy 14 point is really compelling to me because it's you're right. You hear about Final Fantasy 14 and everyone's just yeah, you should come play it. And then they tell you what you have to do to come play with them. And it's okay, well, I'm not going to do that. But but then all of a sudden they're hey, we're all going to go play New World and we're all going to start from the same point. That's such a good point where it's I've been itching to go play Final Fantasy 14 with you. If you're telling me I'm going to get a similar sort of experience and I could start at the beginning with you at the same time, we're all coming yes, count me in. I think that is a huge effect right now.
Fantastic point. And as a Destiny fan, first of all these games scare me because I'm already Destiny.
You've already got your addiction.
That's it. I got one drug. That's my drug of choice. I know what I'm doing, right? So at the end of the day, let me be a crackhead over here with that. But at the end of the day, all I would say is you made a fantastic point in the sense that it's something people always tell me, "Cock, what you doing looks so fun, but I'm gonna start at Destiny at the base level, and then I gotta do, like you said, all that busy work and the pain and the suffering that Matty says, and then they kind of bow out." But so it's always interesting when there's something new comes out, everyone starts at the ground level, like you said, Jeff, together, and it's a shame because I was thinking about Outriders at this point. They had an opportunity outside of all the stupid bugs and stuff that was going on to really capitalize and keep pushing forward because everyone loved it. They joined in on the ground floor at the same time. And it's good to see. It's good to see. So I'm seeing a lot of positive things from it. My behind will be staying away from it, but salute to everybody who's down with it. It's good to see the engagement.
I think it certainly helps too. This is more on a technical level from what I've seen. I've only watched a little bit of gameplay, so I'm actually kind of curious now. And I think that's what's happening too, is you're seeing these numbers and going, well, what am I missing? But when I was looking at some brief gameplay, it's very much it's almost like a third person shooter. It looks a lot tighter than other MMOs where you could like in ESO, you'd see like the spell like flow and almost auto target them and hit them. And there's like, I call it hot bar combat. You're standing still the whole time. This looks more active and engaging. And I think in turns that's more accessible and interesting to a general consumer. So there's something there. But this looks like Amazon finally landed one after a considerable amount of failure with, what was the name of that one game? The Crucible? I think it was.
Yeah, Crucible's right. Yes, that sounds right. Yeah. Man, their take on COD. Yeah, or not COD, CS:GO. Yeah. It's just weird that these companies try. I mean, I guess it had to happen eventually. If you just keep trying, eventually you get something. But this seems like a big hit for them. So yeah, good for them.
Yeah, for sure. All right, number 6. Dolby Vision is officially launched first on Xbox Series X and S on televisions that support it. You'll see brighter highlights, sharper contrast, and more vibrant options. Over 100 games will support it, but at launch, there are only 10. F1 2021, Psychonauts 2, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Gears 5, Borderlands 3, Immortals, Phoenix Rising, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Dirt 5, and Metro Exodus. The Verge states developers can choose between activating Dolby Vision in their engine or taking advantage of the built-in Dolby Vision technology within the Xbox developer platform. Games that use Auto HDR aren't true Dolby Vision games, but Microsoft says they'll benefit from the Dolby Vision mapping technology on Xbox to display much more accurate images on Dolby Vision televisions. Gentlemen, anyone taking advantage of this? I got to check. Oh, yeah. You are?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'll jump in, bro. Yeah. I mean, I was definitely excited to see what was going on here. First of all, God-led OLED TVs. My Lord, your Duke, stand up. Stand up. This is for us. We've waited. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my CX owners. We've waited. So yeah, I dove right. I'm in all them insider programs. I'm in all those tech stuff. I love this stuff. So I wanted to see what the difference is. Now I want to give some advice though, because what was happening is if you have one of these TVs, when I launched, like, for example, a Microsoft Flight Simulator, right when you do the launch period after you initiate Dolby Vision for gaming, what was happening was it would still pop up and I'd get that indicator that says HDR. And I'm like, wait a minute. When I watch Netflix or, Disney Plus something, when it's a Dolby Vision movie, I'll get the Dolby.
That emblem stays up there, yeah.
So I was in my feelings. I was like, where is the prompt, right? So I had to do some digging. I was talking to a lot of members of the team. Shout out to the platform team. Like, hey, what's going on? I have the feature. It's clearly supported. I have like the latest firmware. So what it is if you're a CX user, if you're in the 4K 120 hertz mode, as of right now, the firmware update for 124K Dolby Vision is not active. Right. So you would have to put it to 60
This
60
is the same
hertz.
with the Sony TV I have over here. I have the CX upstairs, but I'm testing the Sony TV. It was the same exact thing. So this is a pretty common thing, I think.
Yeah, so I'm flipping out like, yo, it don't work. What's going on? So once I moved it to 60 hertz, then I got the Dolby Vision, the indicator. So I tried Psychonauts. I tried Flight Simulator. Looks cool. Looks a little richer. I'm not like the super video file, but I know it's a slight difference. You know what I'm saying? So the cool thing is, like you said, this is not even the native implementation yet, because my whole thing was, again, speaking with the team, I was just like, hey, what I think would be a good idea was for you to put in the tech stats, like, it says HDR10, Series X, like you should put Dolby Vision. So they were like, technically it's not Dolby Vision native yet, but now they're going to start implementing, developers are going to start using this tech, start implementing. So this stuff, it's pretty exciting. I like, this is one of the reasons when people ask me why I like the Xbox ecosystem a lot. This is one of the reasons I always feel they're very tech forward, and they tend to Atmos and all this stuff. I mean, 360 got me to get an HD TV. I didn't know what the hell 1080i was. So me and you, Jeff, we in that bag. Like, so I'm a geek. I love this tech stuff, and it's exciting. I like them pushing forward in this space. So, Jeff, I was gonna let you continue because you sounded like you've been playing around with it.
Yeah, just a little bit. But I'll just say overall, I agree. Like, this is the stuff I like for sure. When this generation started, there was a lot of anxiety about, okay, you can go out and get one of these boxes, but are you going to get most of it out of the TV you have right now? And everyone's like, okay, well, go get an LG CX. And then you do that, and you're like, well, now the thing's not even taking advantage of all the things that this TV can do. They're slowly getting to the point where it's like, hey, if you made the investment on both sides and in your Atmos surround receiver and all that stuff, we are going to kind of live up to our side of the bargain and say, thank you for coming along with us. Now here's all your toys getting the max performance they can get. That feels good. It feels like you are being respected as a consumer. And I like that stuff. I think at the same time, you're right. Like, it's not the biggest difference in the world. If you're already getting HDR, it still looks like a good version of HDR. Dolby Vision is better. But I guess I was going to say I wouldn't turn it off for 60 frames, but actually on console, so many games have to like drop down so many visual features to get to 120. Actually, I would turn it off. Give me Dolby Vision, give me 60 frames, give me 4K, and I'll be good. And I think that's a good happy medium right now. But then again, I still like, hey, let's get to that 120. Let's support.
Oh yeah, I'm about the 120. I'm about the 120. Yep. Inside baseball, you're a CX owner. It seems like me, yes. Right?
Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming. Because I was worried LG was going to pull some, you got to buy the G1 for, I thought they were going to pull the new model. Go get the new model if you want 4K 120 Dolby Vision. No, I did hear,
they've been good about those updates. Yeah.
Yes. So CX owners, you're good. Just sit tight. Right now, 4K 60 Dolby Vision, but eventually 4K 120. Because I'm with you. Like, I'm about pushing the hertz, especially in competitive PvP.
Yeah, that does make a big difference. Yeah.
Oh, bro, I'm out here. I'm out here, bro. Yeah. I want every advantage. Elite controllers. I want every advantage to frag.
I'll just say, if you are listening to this conversation though, and you're like, oh man, I like my TV, but this is making me feel like I'm being left behind. Don't feel like you need to update though. I think that's one thing that we should have left behind at the beginning of this generation, was this pressure to feel like you have to upgrade your TV. If you're happy with your TV, keep playing the stuff. It's more about the games than the tech, really. It's just nice that when you do invest, that it's supported. That's all I'm really asking for here.
Yeah, as someone who bought the Sony X900H before launch, and they left out a little firmware update that was supposed to support, I think it was like 4K 120 hertz. I was like, all right, guys, thank you. I'm glad I panic bought this one, and only this one. I took the budget option, and that was my mistake, I guess. But yeah, I honestly don't get a chance to take advantage too much of HDR. I have to, because I have my stuff always hooked up to an Elgato, and so what happens is the capture card, like if I have it activated, it will completely desaturate the image that I'm capturing. So you have to turn it off. Yeah, because I remember when I was streaming Outriders, I remember people were like, "This looks fucking terrible." Yeah, like, what happened? It was like, and I look at my screen, I'm like, "Yo, that's brown." Like, what happened? And someone was like, "Try turning off HDR," and I did. It was boom, very colorful. Now they were getting something pretty, and it looked worse on my end, but I was like, all right, as long as the audience can see something better. So like when I'm reviewing games, it's a pain because I gotta like disconnect, hook it up, because like my computer's in an awkward position. So I don't get to take that much advantage of HDR as others out there. So I'm just glad that they're offering something for Xbox owners, and like Jeff said, respecting the purchase.
Absolutely.
All right, we got 2 more items on the news report. Number 7. Sound the alarms for real, because I have skipped this segment for months. Xbox Games with Gold has some decent games heading your way. The first one I can't even pronounce. Arrow? It's available October 1st.
I think that's right. Yeah.
It's available October 1st to 31st. Then there's Hover. All right, I get it, right? You're like, Matty, you just lied to me. October 16th to November 15th. Then you got Castlevania Harmony of Despair, available October 1st to October 15th. And Resident Evil Code Veronica X, available October 16th to 31st, which a lot of people apparently say is like really good. I haven't played that one, but I like Castlevania. Check that out.
Yeah. Code Veronica is pretty good. I don't know if I ever played Code Veronica X, but I played on the Dreamcast. It was.
I played it on the Dreamcast.
It was good. Yeah.
That was Jill. I believe she was the main one on that one, right?
I think so. I know there's a woman on the cover.
That sounds right. Yes.
So yeah, Xbox Games
Harmony of Despair is like okay. It's not like that Castlevania Advanced Collection just came out everywhere. It's $20. Get that for sure. Those are classics. Harmony of Despair not quite up to those. Yeah, not quite as good as the rest of them.
It's a bonus.
Yes, a bonus. Yeah. There you go.
Number 8, just a quick one here. Nick Duncombe has served as the head of recruitment for Warwickshire-based Playground Games. It was confirmed in his LinkedIn that the studio has hired over 100 people in the year of 2021 for both Forza Horizon 5 and Fable, and they're still looking for more. So,
interesting. I think that's a good number to like look at and be like, yeah, this studio that's trying to hire as many people as they can right now was able to hire 100 people, and they're still looking for more. And the initiative is like, we could do that, but let's not. Let's just hire someone else, bring them in. I think that's a good like a yin and yang for what this could be.
Absolutely. And that's all the news we've got for you this week. Then we have our Game Pass pick of the week. Now, I noticed this is blank. And I know I relayed to Cog to tell Jeff to bring one. Jeff, did you come with one prepared? All right, awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I got two just in case one of these has been mentioned before. But my first one would be Carrion. Carrion is it's a 2D game where you basically play as the Blob in a horror movie, and it's kind of a Metroidvania. But you are definitely like the monster, and it's got great movement. You feel like you could just whip around all over the place. You just point in the direction, and all of your million of tentacles like go across the room. It's great. You can use the right stick to like grab people and then like crunch them and break their bodies apart and eat them, and that's where you get your energy. Yeah, it's a great game. It's a good game for like Halloween, where I don't like necessarily like jump scares, but I like stuff that's like spooky and stuff. And this is definitely like, oh man, this is a monster movie, but you get to play as the monster. It does a really good job of making you feel super powerful. Eventually, they do come up with some enemies that pose a threat, but that takes some time. So you got a real long time of just feeling like this powerful monster, and then there's time to like, okay, how do I defeat these enemies? It's fantastic. The other one was Bug Fables, which is like a Paper Mario indie game. It's like people have been begging for like a new like regular Paper Mario, and someone made it. It's just an indie game. It's called Bug Fables, and it's on Game Pass, and it's really fantastic. It's got good writing, that classic Paper Mario timed RPG combat. Definitely worth checking out. So yeah, those are my two.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny.
Do you approve?
Yeah, absolutely. And last week we actually got a write-in about Bug Fables, so it's
cool.
Amazing that you picked that one, because
there we go.
You know, like our Game Pass write-ins are spotty. Like sometimes people just think of it and they'll toss it in. And it's funny that last week they were like, Matty, you just missed Bug Fables, because I think I deleted off my hard drive, which was stupid, by the way, because it's only like 3 gigabytes. But I was like, it's to make space. Yeah, but I deleted it to make space for I don't know what the fuck I was downloading. It was 3 gigs. But I digress. It appears I gotta get this one. I gotta get into it.
No doubt.
Crave Snow did write in with a Game Pass pick of the week as well. Yo, Dukes, I got a Game Pass pick of the week. If the crew is struggling to think of one, Desperados 3. It's a prequel, so you don't need to have context of the previous games. Side note, I fucking hate when games do this. I'll talk about that in a sec. It's top-down, but not turn-based. It's described as a tactical stealth game. Having a button dedicated to quick save spared me having to redo sections like I end up doing in games like Wasteland 3, because I'm a moron and forget to regularly save. Voice acted with a good story. I loved it. Bought the 3 DLC missions after beating it. Why do games go with the highest number for the prequel, right? Why is this a thing?
Indiana Jones, I know it wasn't numbered, but it's like the second movie, and they're like, this is a prequel, and but then it has nothing to do with like the previous story and doesn't really relate to it at all. I'm like, that they're just making that up. They don't even know what they're saying when they call that a prequel. So I kind of feel like that's what happens a lot of times. So like, we don't want to deal with what we did. Let's just go start from the beginning. And,
I feel like I'm nitpicking at the end of the day, but it's just a little frustration for me. This game reminds me of the way it's described and what I've seen of it. It reminds me of Cog. I feel like you would know this game because it seems like something you would like. Oh my god, it's a tactical game about ninjas running around a level, and it's not XCOM, but it's like Desperados. Like, it's tactical stealth.
Already released? Because I remember interviewing a dev that had a game coming out like that. It looked hot. I'm still freaking as a Polish dev, but no.
Oh my god, this is gonna bother me. I can see the box art now. It's like a white box art. You can see like it's feudal Japan based.
It's turn based. Is Lord of turn based?
Yeah, it's kind of turn based. Like, it's tactical
feudal Japan, and I do not know this.
This is gonna bother me. I think Shadow Tactics or something like that.
Oh, okay, that sounds right. That does sound familiar now that you say it.
Look into this.
Shadow Tactics, Blade of the Shogun.
Okay, I need to look into this.
Yeah, look it up. That would be up your alley. What I saw reminds me of that. Yeah, hardcore tactical stealth game set in Japan around the Edo period.
What?
Yeah, I played a little bit of it. It's actually pretty good.
8.29. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look into this. Yeah, I never heard of this one. Escape. When did this drop? Wow. 2016.
Yeah, it's an older one.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I'll check it out for sure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I had to put one on your radar. That's not even a part of Game Pass.
You already know.
I bet you get it pretty cheap.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I remember when I played it, I bought it from GameStop at the time for like $16. So
right, exactly. Yeah,
it can't be much more than that.
Shadow Tactics. Yeah, let's go.
All right, 5 ending questions to conclude our show. Michael Steinmetz is up next. Hey, Dookie boys! I recently read a making of the remaster of Alan Wake on Xbox Wire, and it got me thinking. Why did Xbox let Remedy go? Is there any bad blood between the two, or does Remedy just really want to be independent? Have y'all heard anything about the relationship? I've loved every game they put out. I would love to have them as first party. P.S. I think Quantum Break is phenomenal and got unfairly viewed because of the whole Xbox TV COD LOL zeitgeist. Hey, man, I didn't edit that one in, by the way. I'm glad we got someone on Team Quantum Break here. What do you guys think about the status of...
Get him, Jeff. Get him.
What do you guys think about the partnership between Remedy and Xbox and where it's at?
It was a bad timing thing. Yeah, they're working on Crossfire. They're working on a bunch of stuff, though. They're working on like that Alan Wake a sequel that I reported on a bit ago. Like they're working on a lot of stuff, and they got Epic in their pocket now, so that's going to help them. The bad fortune of poor timing is kind of what it seems like, where Remedy was making a certain kind of game and Xbox is like, I think we want this sort of thing. And then Quantum Break comes out and it doesn't set the world on fire. And Xbox is like, we don't even know what kind of games we want to make, period. Like, we're not sure what we're doing here. And they were rethinking their strategy across the board. I remember conversations that Phil Spencer would have with like Jeff Gerstmann at the time talking about like, hey, people are spending 700, 800, 1,000 hours on Destiny. Why are we like trying to make games to compete with these things when people just want to play this one thing? And you could see him like the cogs moving in Phil Spencer's head where he's like, we got this world where people are just playing these service games for forever. How do we get, and that's like, okay, obviously the path there is toward Game Pass. But I think Remedy was at a point where like, hey, we need to make games now. We're an independent studio. And Xbox was just like, yeah, we don't know how to leverage you right now. So go be free and maybe we'll work together again one day. And that was definitely like Xbox and Remedy talked about like Alan Wake and bringing it back and doing other games. It's just like Epic was there saying, hey, here are deal terms that you just could never say no to. So that's kind of what happened there. They were going to like maybe think about working together. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
There was just so much money that Epic was spending across the board. There were some eyebrow raisers. Like I think they only gave Ubisoft something like really cheap at one point, but other than that, they were paying an obscene amount of money where I can only imagine what they're giving Remedy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those terms are like public too, like not even from the leak. I think the Remedy deal is like, yeah, it's like 5% about like after, like it's like they're gonna pay for all of development, and then once we recoup development, like we get all of the money after that, except for like 5%. It's like, oh, okay, those are really good terms. So yeah, Remedy's in a good situation now.
Yeah, listen, they took the bag. I am mad. Do your thing, you know. As far as the Quantum Break thing, you know, it was. It was so, the expectation was so grandiose. It just didn't hit for me, Matty. Fix your face. I'm just saying. I'm gonna tell you why.
I'm right there with you. I was just like, it's not for me. Yeah. It's telling me my current mission is to walk outside the building, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like a fun time.
Matty, I wanted to love it. I'm like, little fingers in it.
Yeah,
it's lit. Like I wanted to love it, and it just. You know what I think I remember now? First of all, y'all remember it had like an insane download where it's like the TV
show, right? Yeah.
And I'm like, and I think the problem was the way it was pitched initially was like, watch the TV show. And then remember the initial pitch was that was when they was in their TV bag.
But that is Remedy's thing though. Remedy always has like fake TV shows in their games. It's just they were super into their thing too. Like I remember talking about Crossfire. I'm like, are you going to have a fake TV show in Crossfire X? And they're like, no one's asked this yet, but we're working on something. And now, no, who knows when that game's going to come out? But like, that's their thing. But yeah, they went way off the rails into the TV for that.
Oh yeah, it was insane. It was insane. They had my man. They had Daniels from The Wire on there. There was a lot of people that acted. Yeah, big Iceman, like big budget. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't terrible, man. It's just that it was one of those. It had the formula for #JustOne, but it was one of those things that I do wish, to your point, that if there was any way they could salvage the relationship, it does deserve a sequel.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. Like the potential was there.
Yeah, I know.
Speak your truth. Okay. Convince me why you love this game. Please.
I don't love it as much as I think I'm making it out to be. I'm just giving you a hard time at the end of the day. But I kind of like that it was something new beyond the TV part, you know, because I was one of the people who was like even though I bought Xbox One day one, I was one of the people who was just like very much against their whole TV initiative, but I like the games that they had, and Quantum Break was one of them. And I don't know, I think it's because I always used to run around like with my buddies. They also play Quantum Break, and you know how like Littlefinger would always turn the corner and he would always be like, Jack Joyce, like he'd always call your character's name constantly. That's what I was doing to my friends. Like I just like walk into the living room and be like Jack Joyce. It just became a thing in our group for a while. So it was, I don't know, it was a social thing for sure. But I enjoyed that game, gameplay wise a lot. But also I have to admit I haven't played Control, so I'm full of Remedy bad takes right now, and really indefensible ones at that. But yeah, as to why Xbox let Remedy go, it does sound like a bad timing thing, and ultimately, as long as they're working together on something, I think that's good because I don't think anything made them go sour. I don't think it's always a bad thing. It's just it was just
irreconcilable differences, but not like they were not animosity. It's just we have different goals right now, and that happens.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Adam Thim is our next write-in. Hey there, Duke Boys of New York. I wanted to ask you guys about, is it important for sequels to reinvent the wheel when coming off good first games? One view some game journalists seem to have that bothers me as kind of a negative is if a game feels more like the first game. I can understand why it can be looked at as bad, but if you're getting more of an amazing game, then is it really negative? Thanks, and have a cold center of a hot pocket kind of day. That's a creative one. I respect that one.
What you think, Grubby Grub? What you think?
I think that this is a good analysis of like how a lot of critics sometimes end up thinking about games where we overweight the value of innovation. I think occasionally there's definitely something to be said for making something feel fresh, though, and I think all these companies are fully aware of that. Like God of War 2018 comes out and it feels fresh. It does really well. They are going to do this next God of War that is a clear successor and it's going to continue that story, but it's going to feel a lot like that first game. I'm sure there's going to be lots of innovations there, but they're probably going to be pretty minor compared to what 2018 felt like, and that's going to be fine. But if they were to go back to that a third time, a fourth time, they absolutely would see diminishing returns in terms of sales, let alone critical response. And that's just while we might overvalue novelty and innovation, we do so with keeping in mind that people come into games also a lot of times value that stuff. Now, there are obviously exceptions like Call of Duty. Call of Duty is going to be Call of Duty, and that's going to be fine. And if it continues to be that, it's going to sell well. Yeah, but not everything's Call of Duty. It's just the reality of that. So I get this, and it's something I try to keep in mind. Especially if it's like the first direct sequel, if it's more of the same, I'm usually going to be pretty forgiving of that. And I even like Hitman 3, I really like. It's definitely more Hitman. But it's like, me too. It's my game of the year so far. I'm like, but it's very well refined version of those games. But I do think if they went to the well again, it was exactly like it was Hitman 4 and it was exactly the same thing. I would still like it, but I would be getting to say, hey, if you played all of these, it's more of that. If you want more of that, and okay, but it's just gonna be less newsworthy, less worthy of bringing up in conversation because it's more of the same. That's just the way we work.
Yeah, I've noticed the. I don't even think it's just journalists, by the way, for the record. I just anyone who reviews a game can do this.
Yeah.
But like I think I noticed it most recently with like Deathloop, where to my surprise, personally, I noticed a lot of people thought that this was this new platform that other developers are going to copy, and it kind of surprised me because I think it's also we've seen a lot of time loop games this year, but I think it did carry such a strong weight that a game that, by the way, I'm not here to like debate people's scores, but a game that was like probably realistically going to get like an 8.5 or a 9 for most outlets got moved up to a 10 because they thought it was like that strong of a platform to build off of for them. And to me, it was one of those situations where it played very similarly to past Arcane titles with less depth, if I'm honest. And so I ultimately found it disappointing, but a lot of people complained about my review because they felt I was going back to the well a little too much, saying like, it's not like this. It's not like this. It feels less than that. And people were saying that you should talk about it as if it's the new thing. And I just don't review games like that. I don't like to ignore a studio's history. Everyone reviews games differently, but I did notice with Deathloop, to me, that was the one that stood out as the, this is really like the new thing. And so it's getting some pretty bombastic scores through it.
Yeah. For me with Deathloop, I remember like my thought process. I reviewed that. I was like, I like.
Did you score it, by the way? I
gave it a 5 out of 5. So yeah, I gave it a tough score. But it was like for me, it was on the border. But it's like we have 4 out of 5 out of 5. We don't have 4.5. So I gave it a 5 out of 5. And there was the reason was like I've liked immersive sims. They've always made me feel pretty stupid and like I wasn't as creative as I was hoping I would be. And so I go into a situation and once I get through it, I'm like, now I see all these things I could have been playing with, but I'm not going to play this game again. So it's just now it's making me feel a little disappointed in myself. Where Deathloop is like, yeah, it feels stupid the first time. This character feels stupid right now. That's cool. It's all in context. The next time you come through here, all those ideas you had, now you get to execute on them and feel really good about it. And I really appreciate that. And then the multiplayer is what really put it over for me. I'm like, it's a strong 4 out of 5 with what it has. And then the multiplayer works really, really well. And so, yeah, that's where it got 5 out of 5 for me. But it's like, I'm coming at it from someone who's definitely played Dishonored and liked it, but it was always kind of like, I'm going to bounce off this because I'm just not in love with the way that I play it. And this one's like, we're going to make you feel good about that. And I'm like, okay, this really is doing something new for me in this genre and making me love immersive sims, which is something I was always going to be kind of like going to keep at arm's length. And so, yeah, that's what I was like, you're just doing something new for me.
I got to interject for Matty.
Okay.
Man, we'll let this slide. We know how you feel about the great pantheon of Arcane. We're going to let this Grubb
it's not me. I like those games. They made me feel stupid because I'm like, I would do the most basic stuff in them. And I'd be like, I remember I played an immersive sim that, not like one of the big Arcane ones, but I remember I played at PAX and I got in this room with this puzzle and there's obviously some smart way to solve it, but I see a bunch of boxes and I just start stacking them up on top of one another. And you could definitely do that in an immersive sim. That's the point. But the developers are like, yeah, we haven't seen anyone do that before. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I can tell this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's just like, I'm like this child for the first time in this room and I need time to like figure it out. And the thing about Deathloop is it just gave me that time. So I could see where Matty's coming from, someone who loves this genre and loves this developer. Just like getting me on board was such a big thing. I'm like, this is going to get a lot of people into this genre for the first time.
I was going to say, I'm not going to slander Jeff out here because...
Nah, not slander. We hit that. No, I'm joking.
The reason is his point literally keyed into exactly how I felt about Hades. And I'm sure there are probably veterans of roguelikes that maybe aren't crazy about Hades. But for me, I can't stand that genre. I would go to the length of saying I really don't like it. But
you're wrong.
Hades.
But, yeah, go ahead.
Wait, I didn't slander you.
I got slander you. I'm a bad person. I know. Thank you for being nice to me, but I'm the guy.
I know both of you feel strongly the opposite on this. That's why I'm starting trouble. Continue.
All I was gonna say is that Hades provided the same feeling that Jeff's feeling with Deathloop, where I was like, all right, I like this. This entry point was huge.
Hades
for
is
me.
a marvel of design. It is, deserved game of the year last year. It's awesome. Yeah, it's very good.
Really pushed me over the top. So I'm guessing Deathloop is going to be in your game of the year talk as well. So that'll be
it'll be in my top 5, I think, for sure. Yeah, It's right now. It's number 3 behind my personal list. Just kind of like from off the top of my head, Hitman 3, The Forgotten City, and then Deathloop.
I gotta play Forgotten City.
Gotta play Forgotten City. It's a really good time loop game. Yeah.
And then I can't wait to cycle back around to most disappointing games of the year because when I bring Deathloop back up, they're coming for me, man. They're coming for me. I do a best game of the year and a disappointing game of the year. And last year I picked Animal Crossing as one of my most disappointing games. I was playing with fire, and people were just like, "Hey, I respect that you did that." This year, now that we've like really picked up Defining Duke and like I've just been submerged in a community, even though I try to stay platform agnostic, like. I'm fucked this year, man.
You're done. You're both.
Like it's
what they call you, what the pony and the Xbox at the same time.
I put it in my Twitter bio. Put it in my Twitter bio.
I love that you did that.
I was just like, I can't win. So because the thing is, like, now when I got people quote tweeting my Halo thing, and they're like, "Who is this guy?" They're like, oh, "Fuck!" Like, because I go to some of these people's profile, and they always have their platform in their bio. I'm like, why?
Yeah,
why?
Yes, I hate that. I'm like, I'm gonna check if they have that. I know what I'm dealing with, and I'm just gonna,
it's always a tell.
They always do.
Yeah,
bro.
They have a soccer player avator, and then they're like, "Hey, I love PlayStation." I'm like, all right, well,
you ain't lying.
You
ain't lying, bro. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna keep it real. Like, I told y'all, I got the 10 tweet rule. Like, I look at before I follow you or even interact, I look at your last 10 tweets, and if it's all of that nonsense and fanboying, and I'm like, I already know what I'm doing.
Your leash is like this, and mine's like an inch short.
Yours like 2 tweets.
Oh, dude, if I see one tweet, I'm like.
It's 2 buttons to get rid of a weird guy. Like, that's it. That's how I feel about it. It's like, hey, I press 2 buttons and now I no longer have to deal with a weird guy. That seems like a good use of my time instead of actually seeing the weird guy stuff. Like, that's absolutely.
Perfect. Like, at the end of the day, like, I always tell people it's everyone's platform, how they choose to run it, how they choose to interact with. That's the key thing. You know what I'm saying? And everyone has a different thing.
People block me, please. I don't want you to deal. Don't follow me if you don't want to. Don't feel like if you followed me and you want to unfollow me, please, God, just unfollow me. I tweet too much. I don't want to be putting stuff. Yeah, get me off of your feed. I get it.
Yeah.
No, I feel you. To the question, I just say, it's a tough balance because, with the initial game, especially they knock some things out the park and the sequel comes, that sometimes, you do feel like, oh, wow, they need to innovate this. But there is something to be said that if you really, I think, Jeff, you said it like in a way that, you almost tell the gamer like, hey, if you loved the first one and you love this core aspect of it, and because this is coming back in spades, you're going to love this game.
Mm-hmm.
And then for other people, they might want some new innovation. But my main thing is try to learn from your mistakes from the first game, the things that people really didn't like. And sometimes you got to be careful with reinventing the wheel, because sometimes you lose the core aspect of what made the first one kind of great. So it's a tough balance.
Yeah.
I don't envy that.
I think a great sequel is always just about how well it retools. So I look at something like Doom, where 2016 I liked, but I complained about its to me its length was too long, and I didn't like how it kept giving you new weapons and stuff, and then it just stops, and then you have like 4 hours of just a shooting gallery that I just didn't find as engaging. But Doom Eternal was in my top 5 last year because it addressed that type of stuff and retooled like how your interactions with the armor and the health, through your chainsaw and smelting their armor off with the flamethrower or whatever it was called. Like, to me, that worked really well, on top of how they doled out progression, how they added more to the maps, how they included verticality. The shotgun chain thing was insane. Like, they just retooled the game. It was still Doom, but like you said, Cog, they didn't like reinvent the game where they lost what Doom was, because I liked Doom. It's just I didn't love it. Now I love Doom because of the little tweaks they made. So I think it's just the key to a really good sequel. But
yep, good point.
Sean Mason's our next write-in. Hey, Duke boys. During the video game club I run at my school for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, a group of them were talking about how much fun they were having playing Sea of Thieves. They told me it was their favorite game to not only play, but also to relax and hang out with friends. With Season 4 out officially, the kids were hyped about all of the added content. This got me thinking about Sea of Thieves as a whole. Despite its lackluster launch, Sea of Thieves has been a tremendous success for Xbox and Rare. With the fallen popularity over the last decade of more prominent Xbox first-party games such as Fable, do you think Sea of Thieves is right there with Halo and Gears in the terms of importance? Best, Sean M.
Ooh, I like this question.
I think it's not a pretty one, but...
Yeah, you're right, exactly. I think and you have to kind of consider, like, I mean, you go ask a kid what you care about right now, and if they are playing Sea of Thieves, I bet there's a good chance they'll be like, yeah, Sea of Thieves. I don't give a shit about Halo. I think there's a strong chance that can happen. That's gonna filter out over time. It takes a long time. 10 years is a long time in gaming for that generation to come up and be like, all right, now we're here, and the thing we want you to bring back is Sea of Thieves, and we don't care about all that stuff.
Yeah, holy shit, that's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be weird. But I think in terms of, like, if you talk about it right now, it has definitely worked its way up to being like sort of that next tier at the very, very least. I think we talk about I have a Nintendo podcast. We talk about like, where does Fire Emblem fit in compared to Mario and Zelda? It's like, oh, it's moved up and be like probably that next tier. And so that's why they're going to keep working on that series so much. I think Sea of Thieves is easily sort of like an equivalent to like a Fire Emblem, this thing that has come up, proven itself over time, and is now like right there in terms of one of the first things people talk about when they say, why do you love playing, on Xbox or whatever? While I know it's still the butt of a joke for a lot of people because of its launch, that is really missing the forest for the trees for what that game is now, and it's a big deal for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cog, what about you?
Yeah, bro, this is a great question because to me it denotes the disparity between the vocal minority on Twitter and hardcore gamers versus what popular culture and other people are playing. And I'm an older gent. Like, Sea of Thieves wasn't necessarily for me, but I want to shout out a couple of people. I obviously got to shout out the mayor, Ben Smith. This is his game. He plays this consistent. I want to shout you out. You brought up the engagement numbers recently, Matty, right? Yeah. And you were just showing Steam alone, and I think even Ben told us, like, that's just that one platform. They even doing way better on these the other platforms. So it is amazing to see that they've stuck with it. The actual content, the engagement, the streaming community that's rallied behind this thing. I got to shout out my boy from RDX, Ozarka. He plays this thing all the time on PC. Like, this is a big thing. I mean, it's not for me, but one thing I do realize is that this is serving a community of gamers that, let's be honest, you know what I'm saying? Like, they are sticking with it. And
thousands of hours. I got friends with thousands of hours in this game.
Yes, bro.
It
And
is their forever game, and it's like
it's forever.
Yeah, and it's a significant audience too, and it's the kind of thing that bounces back up on Twitch and does have really good engagement numbers over time. And you kind of, I mean, people want to discount that and be like, oh, when Halo first came out, like Halo 3 first came out, and they had the number about how many concurrent players they had. Oh, there's 1 million people online, and that's a success. And it's really not. A success right now is 10,000 concurrent players on Steam or more. This game is right in that range. So it is easily a success. And then it just in terms of like that brand equity, it does have the brand equity to get up there with Halo and Gears. And I think over time, it almost certainly will. Yeah. We got to see what they're going to do next. They'll probably keep this going, but I think there's room to do more with Sea of Thieves, right? There's room to take that brand and maybe put out other kinds of games and play with that idea. Honestly, if Everwild is this doom boggle or, this debacle, sorry, if it's this thing that's falling apart and they don't know what to do with it, just go do something more with Sea of Thieves instead. Honestly, Ray. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's not your thing, but you should.
Yeah. The final point. I'm sorry, man. One point I just want to get before I go is that to me, when I saw the Pirates of the Caribbean integration, all this great stuff, and I gotta be honest, like our community, ILP community, they for our Patreon tier, they were like, hey, we want you guys to play a game together, see a thing. I ain't gonna lie, it's a romp with friends. I'm gonna lie. I had to bend the knee. Attic was the captain. He had us laughing.
It's role play. It's like low key too. So it's like, things go bad, but that's the fun. And pulling that off in a video game is so hard. People hate when things go wrong. People despise it. They're like, let's reload a save. That's not what this game is. This game is, it's going to go wrong, and you're going to come out with a story to tell your friends, and that social currency is worth so much. Especially now, again, when we talked about like New World, like why it's doing well, that's right where that Sea of Thieves is. It's like that social currency of having something to talk about in your Discord and tell these stories. It's perfect for that. And I'm continuously impressed, and I do like occasionally checking in on it myself and seeing what it's doing because it is fun with friends. Absolutely,
no doubt. Okay, man.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw out there that I think there's something that always gets forgotten because it's so hard to find consoles on store shelves now. But when they do, I always remember growing up, like one of the big things for me was seeing what the games were on there, what they were featuring, and of course we always go to Halo, but I think, of course, we were talking earlier about family-friendly games and having something like Sea of Thieves is one of the things on the cover. That's what I think of. I'm like, would Xbox put this on the box that they would sell with the Series X or the Series S? And I'm like, yeah, probably. Like, I think Sea of Thieves would be featured on the back as one of the games that they're touting, especially if they got the okay. I don't know if they would actually need the okay from Disney to be like, hey, can we put the Pirates of the Caribbean, like the expansion we did for it, on this so that people recognize this Disney property? I think it makes their console more appealing. So ultimately, I'm of the mindset that they're definitely like knocking on the door of being in that talk now. The thing that they need is something that Halo and Gears have benefited from, which is time so that people can reminisce. Which Sea of Thieves is just too new. It came out 5 years ago to really have, but people still talk about the days in Halo 3, the days of coming home to Gears 2, Gears 3 multiplayer, that type of stuff. So Sea of Thieves just needs that time, and I think it'll join that company as it continues to get better over time.
Definitely.
No doubt.
All right, 2 more questions left. Next one comes from Lucas Kasecker. Hey, guys, long time, first time. Matty. Oh, no. I have a big contention regarding your preference for trophies over achievements. Man, I get this one a lot.
All the time.
Let me explain. Of course, it's nice to get a platinum, signifying you did everything. But on Xbox, without the presence of a platinum, I tend to go after achievements even when I don't intend on completing them all. On PlayStation, if I'm not going for the plat, I don't even bother with the other trophies. In other words, on Xbox, it feels like every achievement matters. On PlayStation, if not for the plat, the rest is disposable. Thanks for all you do. Greetings from Brazil, the land of expensive consoles.
Matty,
this is a fair argument. I'm not bending
yourself,
the knee.
Matty.
Yeah,
explain yourself.
I'm not bending the knee, but this is a fair argument.
I gotta admit, I'm pretty. That's pretty compelling because I tend to go that way too, where it's like, that's an interesting achievement that I just saw. I guess I will try for that. And I do think of PlayStation things in terms of the platinum and only the platinum.
Exactly. And it's like, it was like I was reading about myself. I'm like, wait, I fucking do this. No, like I do this. I do this without even realizing it. So Lucas got me on this one. There's no clapback that needs to be done here. I just need to give it an acknowledgement. I still think that trophies are more fun because you get something at the end. It's just that. I'm an RPG fan. The reward at the end of anything speaks to my soul directly. So that's it. From chores and getting allowance when I was like 5 years old to something like a platinum trophy in a video game.
My wife's a teacher, and she gives out belts like a martial art to her students. So
there you go.
One of her students was the first one to earn a yellow belt, and she's so excited. And all the school talks about it because like, oh, it's such a good idea. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. I would have loved that when I was in school. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yep.
Mhm.
There you go.
Yeah. I'll just jump real quick. It's just that it's interesting because this is a good, compelling, kind of argument, and I definitely understand it. I think for me, when I love a game, I feel like this moral obligation to kind of get the platinum, and fit it, because if I claim to really be about this thing, then I want to kind of do service, I guess. Yeah, it's like a gamer. I know it's foolish. It's just something I take pride in. But I understand this point. There are times, though, the opposite side where I'll say, I'm not doing that. Like sometimes, like the game will be like, all right, you got to get 65 book bags and this. And no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And you making me do extra busy work for some things. Now, there's other times where I feel they're really creative and they make me do a play style that I would have not normally done. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I actually enjoy this. I would have never done this if it wasn't for this achievement. So it's a balance, you know what I'm saying? But I understand both sides of the argument. But I still give the platinum edge. I'm gonna hold to that. I'm still gonna get a platinum edge. I still think Xbox needs an equivalent. I still feel PlayStation kind of beat them to the punch in their own space, even though Xbox debuted, created the system. I do think they need an equivalent. I'm going to understand.
All I got to ask Lucas is in return here is like, are you going to be upset if Xbox adds something like
what are you going to do?
Why are we taking our heels on my stance here? Because I look at the end of the day is y'all better be celebrating with me when they do that, because I'm going to be very disappointed if you're not. And I feel like they got to eventually, because they're the ones who introduced the goddamn system. So it's only a matter of time.
They could improve achievements. They really could. So, and that's the key way.
And I love the rare achievements. For me, they've sort of not soured by any stretch of the imagination, but they hit a little less hard because this sounds stupidly privileged, and I acknowledge it. But like when I'm reviewing games, like
everything is rare. Yep.
Everything is rare. Everything's a rare achievement. So I'm like, what is the actual rare achievement, right? I don't get the sensation that everyone else gets because everything's at 0.1%.
That's just because all the other people playing are games journalists and we're bad, so we're not catching up to you. So it takes us a while to get all the stuff that you're already getting.
One last request, if anybody's listening from the team, or remember the old Xbox U, I feel Xbox strength is their achievement art. And I think some of this achievement art for some of the games, Halo, Gears, are like phenomenal. And there was at one point during the Xbox ecosystem, I believe Xbox One, where they had a thing called the Showcase, and you could take your 5 achievements that you're the most proud of and put it in like an art style thing on your profile. And I'm like, Jeff Grubb, I'm bad. Like every time the Xbox inside the thing, I'm like, you need to make like I'm the guy complaining. I'm like, where's the Xbox Achievement Showcase? Because this was so great. Now you took it away, and I want to showcase. So I'm probably like the one dude that probably requested it. But I think it's cool, man. I love the art style. Yeah. It's like they clearly paid a team to do this great art to signify an achievement. Even Ross on the Room got some of the best achievement art I've ever seen. And I would put that on my profile. I got to bring it in. I got to bring FPS boost. Got to will it into existence. So the whole thing is, we're working. That's how the Duke boys do. So it's like, that's what I want to do. I just want them to do, because it's such a gamer cred pride thing. Like, yo, I did that. You know what I'm saying? Kind of thing. That's just me.
Yeah. Last question of the show. Justin Robinson writes in, hey, Matty, Cog, and possibly Jeff. Indeed, it is Jeff. How do you think Sony is going to handle being out of the conversation for a little while? Whoa. He says, follow me here. I think Halo Infinite is going to be massive. Was watching Dr. Disrespect and Tim the Tatman play the beta over the weekend, and I can see they were really enjoying it. This is the first time in a while that all the streamers will be playing a game that isn't available on a PlayStation console, like Warzone, Apex, Final Fantasy XIV, and Battlefield. I don't watch streaming that often, but I think it's foolish to ignore how popular it is. How will PlayStation handle not having their own big FPS, and especially if Halo Infinite were to get a Battle Royale? Thank you. Hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for making the best Xbox podcast in all the land. Justin, thank you, Justin. We appreciate you on that. I thought this was interesting because we were just talking about how important streamer engagement is with New World, and it got me thinking immediately about Halo, and it's like, do you think a similar thing's going to happen here, Jeff?
I do think a similar thing is going to happen here. I think I don't know if Microsoft has it like as part of their plan to like go pay streamers to play the game. They should. I think every multiplayer game should do that. It's again invaluable. But a lot of that stuff can happen pretty naturally, especially if it's like the big game right now. And I think they'll probably benefit from that. And when they do, it is going to feel kind of suffocating if you are one of these people who's like, I don't want to hear about what's going on in Xbox, or that makes you uncomfortable and you just want it to be, the PlayStation celebration party 24/7. And it's going to be annoying. And I think at PlayStation, they're pretty good at being like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's happening right now. We're, we've been here before. We've been in the end zone before. We're going to be Barry Sanders about it. We'll hand the ball off and let the other team have the ball for a little bit, and then
Detroit reference.
Yeah. So yeah, the Lions fan.
I see you. Continue.
And so they're gonna and they'll come back and they'll have something to talk about relatively soon. I think they'll have factions probably early next year, it seems like, in that range, and they'll start talking about that. And I think they're going to get more serious about multiplayer games here pretty soon. There was that the job listing for an MMO or multiplayer thing happening at Guerrilla, and that could be related to Horizon. That stuff's probably happening. They have a lot of yeah. That's been in the works for many years now, it seems like. Yeah. So it seems like that they are interested in having a way to clap back with their own multiplayer game that is just on PlayStation. It's something I didn't think they would do, but it definitely seems like they are keen on doing that. And that just means right now, this holiday, you're going to have to sit back and deal with the Halo love, as long as, and that's assuming that Halo doesn't have some sort of catastrophe in terms of its servers or whatever, and it falls apart, I'm sorry, who knows? Yeah, the Master Chief Collection sort of situation. You never know.
It's not impossible.
Yes, but if it all goes wrong, if it all goes right, Sony will just have to deal with it and come back and be fine. And really, the PlayStation 5 is going to sell out, and their games are going to continue to sell. And Miles Morales is going to continue to be in the top 5 every month on the MPD. So they're going to do just fine in terms of their pocketbook, the thing that Jim Ryan really cares about. And then when it's time to make announcements again, they'll have something to say in terms of multiplayer pretty soon. And people will listen. Yes, absolutely.
Cog, what about you? Any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Grubb said it best. I mean, I think it's just par for the course. I think, this generation is going to be a heavyweight fight, man. I think, Microsoft's completely committed. PlayStation had a phenomenal last generation. They're the market lead, and they're still, hitting strong and making good moves. I just think it's like, it's par for the course in the sense that it's like, okay, we know what's coming. Brace for impact. We've been here before. This is their cycle. This is this time. And that's just the part. Like, it's the same thing to me. It's like Xbox must say when Last of Us 2 dropped, all right? It's just like, okay, we know it's coming. Buckle down. They'll do so. And then what generally, you allow the competition to have the cycle for the most part, right? And then you just do something a little bit after things die a little bit, just to remind them, like, hey, remember we got this coming over here. Yeah. We got Miles Morales too. It's just par for the course. But the beauty of this is I love that it's that competitive this generation, that Microsoft has these great titles to end the year. Forza to really knock it out the park, even though Matty's a Forza hater by the fans. I think it's funny that they call you that. I think it's hilarious. But
unbelievable.
Forza, exactly.
What a shitty ass.
Exactly. So it's like you got Horizon 5. That's going to be huge for them, right? Halo, again, multiplayer. We're getting positive vibes from it. It should, dominate the news cycle, provided, especially if the campaign does well. They're going to end the year strong. There's just no escaping that. And Sony knows this. So they just got to hunker down. They'll do a couple things probably at the end of the year just to remind you, hey, we're still here, that kind of thing. And it's going to be a great gen, man. I love this kind of stuff. I love Xbox competing and having titles to be.
I definitely think Xbox's bow on the year is going to be Game Awards. I think there's no doubt that they're going to 100% be there in a capacity. Once again, I would put money on Avowed. I would put actual money on Avowed.
I think you're probably right. I think Hellblade was kind of the plan as well, but we'll see if that actually
Grubb exclusive. We heard it first. Clip it, y'all. Run with it.
They were thinking about doing that thing that they had after E3 with Paris. They were thinking about putting that in the show, and like, no, that's too much reuse stuff. So we'll just save that, and then we'll do something later in the year, probably at the Game Awards. That seemed to be the plan.
Hellblade.
We'll see. We'll see. Those plans could change.
I think Avowed. The reason why I think Avowed is likely. I've said this on the show a lot, but Avowed, like, I remember reading the E3 post from Obsidian, and they were just like, yeah, we'll show more later this year. And now it's September. It's like, okay, well, there's probably a pretty obvious spot.
And they got to the E3 planning, and I remember hearing like about that meeting, and they're like, "Hey, all right, and now here's what they show the Outer Worlds 2, right? That's what they showed. So like, all right, and here's our thing with Outer Worlds 2." And then someone was like, "Why are we showing Outer Worlds 2?" And Obsidian was like, "Because you told us to earlier this year. This is what you asked for, and so we don't have Avowed ready." And they're like, "We should get Avowed ready. We don't have it ready." And so it's like, yeah, I imagine after that, like, okay, now we have to show Avowed next. And I think you're right. Game Awards makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Game Awards. We'll see what happens. I just need Grubb to confirm my dream with Kojima and Keegan.
We'll see, man. We'll see. I know that it seemed like that deal was going to happen. So I think Game Awards makes a lot of sense. They're going to have. They should have a lot at the Game Awards. They're primed for it. So
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like inside scoops or not to put all the pressure on Jeff. Just in general.
No, Jeff said it's official. Yeah. It's official.
I mean, that's what the headlines are going to say. So why not?
Hey, just as long as they link the podcast, right?
Give us some love.
Get yours. Yeah, get yours. I get that.
Exactly. It's Jeff's scoop, but it's our show, you know?
Exactly. Absolutely. I understand.
Duke, you heard.
We'll see. That'll be telling. That'll be very telling if people agree with us or not.
That'll be funny.
Anyway, we appreciate you sharing that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Xbox ends the year. And I think people are just in general adjusting to the idea that like Xbox is semi-competitive right now. Like that's just a thing. Like I don't think PlayStation cares because they've had a whole generation to put like their foot on Xbox's throat, step on it and be like, all right, like we have a ton of IP established that people know that will sell millions of copies. Effectively, we're fine. And now we got a deal with Marvel on multiple games. So they're doing fine. I don't think PlayStation is going to care if Xbox is in the conversation for a couple months, although it's at the right time with holidays and stuff. So they'll probably want to have something to say about that.
Yeah, and at the top of the year, Horizon, they got stuff coming. They'll be
yeah, and they there was that talk they might have a PSX come back or something like that.
That'd be cool.
They can make more announcements then. I agree. That would be very cool. That'd be a cool thing because they're in a situation where their timing is just working out. More games at the beginning of the year, fewer games at the end of the year. If you make announcements, people are going to forget that real quick and know, okay, I got some cool stuff that I know is coming, and then I'm going to be playing Horizon in a few months. That's what's going to matter.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's all we got for the questions for this episode. Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here.
Absolutely. It's a really good time, guys. I really appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah. I wanted to shout you out because obviously it's been an eventful week.
I'll just say, like, it's not a big deal to me. Like, it's not like, I think it's not that big a deal. Like, me and Colin had a little spat, but it's not, I don't really harbor any ill will. And I think that when it comes down to it, it's just we're all trying to get by. We're all living our lives, all doing our work. And then you go on Twitter and it's so easy to just send off stupid shit and vitriol. And then it's just as easy to like turn around and forget you did that. And that's what it was. And it's just the smallest little stuff that I think doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And what matters is having cool conversations like this and coming on and talk about stuff we actually do like. And and as long as that's what we're doing, I'm more than happy to be.
Yeah, I didn't want to put you on the spot. I didn't want to make you feel like you had to.
And I appreciate that. That's it was really thoughtful, and I appreciate it. You guys are great hosts, and I mean that like hosting the show, but also hosting me as a guest. I really appreciate it. This is a really good time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I had a fantastic time, and at the end of the day, man, we all love video games.
We all
feel
love
games.
Yes,
that's
100%.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
Thank you for coming through. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Likewise.
Kyle, you got a hashtag for this week, brother?
It's a good one. I don't know. This is so many good topics. Like I couldn't think of one. I'm gonna put it back on. You always good with them, man. You always good with them. This last one I knew was concern. I was like, it's too much fake concern trolling. So we was running with the hashtag.
Scoop.
So we got to roll. Scoop, you want to do Scoop? You want to do Scoop? DD?
Yeah, I kind of like that.
For it.
Yeah, let's do Scoop. We can plug. We had that that Grubb exclusive.
Absolutely. So,
Scoop DD. Let's go.
Absolutely. So you got this deep. You want to let us know? Either fire away with the hashtag Scoop DD in the comments down below, or tag us on Twitter at G27status. Sorry, is my handle. Lord Cognito is Cogs, and then Jeff Grubb for Jeff Grubb, of course. So follow us, tag us. Let us know you got this deep. Let us know your thoughts on the show. We're looking forward to hearing from you. And until next time, we'll catch you with episode 40 next week. Peace out.
Peace.
Bye.
Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from the United States of America. The show is conceived by Matthew Mr. Matty Plays Schroeder and me, Colin Moriarty, and is written and produced by Matthew Schroeder. Matty's co-host is Barry Lord Cognito Eversley. Defining Duke's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Defining Duke, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level on Patreon, and we're thankful for your kindness and generosity.